Welcome into an all-new episode of Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Rauen, joined by Ricky Raines and Bryson Karbley. Guys, can you believe it? I know, Ricky, you joined us last couple months, but we have officially hit 150 episodes here on Panthers on Tap. Pretty big milestone. Started this thing in 2021, and we are still rolling strong. So something to celebrate tonight. I know we didn't get a win, but still pretty cool to hit that 150 mark. But how you guys doing tonight?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like 150, man. We've been, like you said, we've been doing it for about 3 years, and it hasn't been all fun and games, unfortunately for us doing it. But I've had a good time talking Panthers football. My own form of therapy, and just excited to continue to put out content. And with the addition of Ricky to the team, it's just been stellar. So excited for that. But how I'm doing currently, coming off of an embarrassing performance that we're going to get into, I could be doing better.
Yeah, 150, man. That's crazy. You guys put in all the work and then just let me come and ride the coattails. I appreciate that, first of all. Yeah, I'm doing okay, man. Look, we're 1-4, so I'm not terrific. We're here to talk about the Panthers football, so it's hard to amp yourself up too much about it, but we try every single week. And Sir Hendog here has a good point for the 150th show. Let's go. Hope we got some good beer for that. I've got a couple of decent beers. Hopefully Curtis and Bryson, step their game up here for their big day. Yeah, that's about it.
What are you drinking, Ricky?
All right, so right now I'm drinking a Scotch style ale. It's called Apple Cider Donuts. It's a Scotch style ale with apple cider donuts, cinnamon, and vanilla. It's a 7% beer. Really good. It's about 68 degrees, 67 degrees here in Charlotte. Man, it just feels like hoodie weather. And that's when I start breaking out the flannel, breaking out the hoodie, and anything fall. I got a couple other things. I've got my burial beers. I'm still supporting Asheville's brewery as much as I can right now, especially. So I've got their fest beer. And just in case things go crazy, I've got a dry hopped American Pilsner called Extra. And I hate this one because on the can, it's got a giant bear, and we just got mauled by a couple of bears last week. But, the beer tastes good.
Bryson, what are you drinking over there?
Yeah, besides my frozen beer that I accidentally left in the freezer too long, it's the Thank You for Existing from Dissolver Brewery that I love. I've drinking a couple times. Waiting for that to thaw out, but right now I'm drinking one from Noose River Brewing, and it's just a lager, locals only, and it's really good. Figured I'd go a little bit more on the calm side tonight as far as taste goes, but yeah, that's what I've got. Maybe I do need to grab a third and drink along with Ricky though.
Yeah, I've been depressed, so we're going with wine, folks. And I was expecting someone to maybe tag along on our parlay, but no one did. So I was hoping that's why I kind of got the wine. But this is from a local brewery in Lexington, North Carolina, Weather Vane Winery. It's a blackberry wine there, on the sweeter side, 12%. It's really good. I'm more of the sweeter. I'll drink any wine, but I do prefer the sweeter ones more than the bitter. But yeah, I mean, I know I've dabbled with wine before, and Ricky has given me shit. But
hey, I love a good wine. You just had like a little Johnny Depp moment there, where you're like, it's a nice sweet blackberry wine. I'll drink any wine. I love it, man. That's great. I love wine too, man. I just never think about it, when it comes to podcasting, but. Maybe I will next week, man. Maybe I'll join you.
Well, before we get into it, guys, I do just want to bring this back up. Ricky kind of touched on it with a shout out to the Asheville Brewery. But as we know, there is a storm. Actually, I think it just, came in Milton. And actually, I think it just made landfall in Florida not too long ago. But we also can't forget about the folks in the western part of our state. Who has been still obviously is going to be a long time for a recovery for them, but with Hurricane Helene. But we just wanted to throw out these local groups again for you guys to donate. We'll probably be doing this for several weeks because, like I said, this thing is it came in quick and destroyed a lot of folks' lives and their homes. And So we're going to do what we can to help them out. So here are a lot of the organizations. We'll just keep this up. We do have American Red Cross, Samaritan's Purse, Hearts with Hands. There's Mana Food Bank in Asheville, Beloved Asheville. So there's a lot of ways you guys can help them out. And if you have any extra spare change or money that you can send them, it would be greatly appreciated. I'll throw this graphic back up towards the end of the episode. But guys, let's get into it. Let's talk. Again, Bryson said it. I mean, it was a brutal loss to the Bears. I think we all had them winning this past week in the Panthers. And they've come up short, and Caleb Williams, Panther, it's get right for any team that plays the Panthers. It's the get right week, and Carolina struggled mightily. I just kind of want to start. I know we focused heavily on the offense last week, so I'm going to start with the defense because I think it's pretty damn clear that that's a major weakness for this team right now. So, Ricky, I'll let you start it off. What didn't you see from this defense on Sunday?
Pressure. Again, man, like there is zero pass rush. There's the play with Caleb Williams that I've seen going around. I was actually talking to Terry about this play, and it's Caleb is literally looking around in the pocket, trying to find the pass rush, and it's just nowhere to be found. But he's like panicked. He's like, man, I've been in this pocket forever. Somebody's got to be near me, and there's not. There's literally nobody. The opposing quarterback is feeling like there should be pressure because he's been there for so damn long, and there's not. Not just the pressure part of it, though, but that defensive front, man, we're just in a world of hurt right now on the front end of that defense. We know that we lost Shaq and Josie. Shaq for the year. Josie may be back this week as something that I saw earlier that they're trying to see where he's at. But Trevor Wallace comes in and has, 15 tackles. That's a nice cumulative stat. Like, it looks really good on the stat sheet. But when you watch it play, you realize why he wasn't necessarily unseating Josie Jewell or Shaq. I think that he's got a little bit of his diagnostic development that still needs to happen. He's a little bit overzealous. He bites on a lot of the eye candy. He ends up being out of position, which is on his Kentucky tape as well, where he just bites down a little bit too hard, especially on play fakes or on motions. I don't know, man. I'm pretty perturbed by this defense, to be completely honest, and I try to find the words to make it sound like I'm looking for silver linings because that is kind of my shtick, right? I try to find the good in everything. I'm having a really hard time with the defense, man. And a lot of it is because it's decisions that this team has willingly made. And that kind of chaps me a little bit, man, that they just let us and allowed us and knew that it could be this bad. We're injured. I get that, man. That's they've decimated our best players in Derek Brown. But ask yourself this question. If Derek Brown was playing, how much better would this defense be?
It's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, I won't hammer on the pressure because I agree. I mean, it's obviously non-existent, and that's an issue. And they've made some additions that we'll get into in a little bit, but hopefully that changes. But probably not. One thing I didn't see was effective communication. I sound like I'm teaching a leadership course, but effective communication in that secondary, we see it week in and week out where there's just none. There's no communication, and J.C. Horn thinks he's passing off DJ Moore to a safety or another corner, and DJ Moore scores a 40, 50-yard touchdown. And it's just things like that, the little things that come down to coaching at the end of the day in fundamentals. I'm not seeing any of that from this defense, and that's frustrating because the defense is – you can have whatever you want versus this defense. It's there for the taking, and there were some missed opportunities. The first play of the game for the Bears on offense, J.C. Horn could have had a pick six essentially. And, Keenan Allen tips the ball from him, but we were inches away from that potentially being a completely different game. And unfortunately, those things just aren't going our way this year. So, overall, the defense has a lot of work to do. And I think, things can be improved. You just got to get down to the basics, man. And work on these fundamentals, this communication, and get that hammered out. And then hopefully some of these other things fall into place.
Yeah, I like what Sir Hendog said here, Curtis. We all might need a whole bottle of wine if the pass rush doesn't get better. That's kind of what I was going for tonight with the wine selection. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to harp on too much what you guys said, but I agree. I think too, you Bryson talked about communication. I think Trevin Wallace, I think that was a lack too by him. They're just that guy who's getting those calls, and he's the one who really needs to be getting everyone set. And that obviously just didn't happen. I mean, he admitted foolishly that he didn't even know it was a fourth down stop, which is crazy to me. I'm actually shocked
That's
they didn't
crazy,
ask
dude.
the coach. I'm shocked the media didn't ask the coach about that after the fact on Monday. So that's concerning, and I get it. I mean, it's, he's going to take some rookie lumps, and it's going to take him some time. So I get that, I understand that, but that was clear, and I thought that was more concerning than anything because for how beat down this defense is, to throw a guy like that in there and him try to be the head of it all it didn't work out. And then you just compound it with Clowney going down middle of the game. You really don't have a pass rush at that point. I know, and I have defended Evero last week, and I still will somewhat defend him because I don't think the guy just forgot how to coach overnight. I still think he's a hell of a defensive coordinator. I don't think he has a ton of pieces. The cover 3 stuff it bugs me. And you could see when J.C. Horn was locked up man-to-man press on a guy, he'd shut him down. That's what J.C.'s good at. And to take him out of position and then for them to play cover 3 so much, I think that's hurting them. And then, like you said, the secondary, I mean, I saw enough on Sunday of Nick Scott. That guy was driving me nuts out there. And I know we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I didn't think there would be much drop off between the two with Fuller hurt. But, man, it hasn't been the same. And honestly, Woods, it seems like, hasn't really Xavier Woods back there. And that guy, he had a very quiet but a very good season last year. And I don't know, it just seems like that whole secondary is out of sorts. And I don't know if it's him and Nick Scott not on the same page and the rest of the secondary. Something seems out of sorts there in that back end that you didn't see last year. And they were honestly plugging and playing guys too last year. And I mean, they made it work. So I don't know what the disconnect there is, but they need to figure that out because it's causing issues. And like Bryson said, there's been a lot. Panthers gave up too many big plays this past week on the defensive side of the ball, way too many to count even. So they need to shore that up. And obviously the injuries these past few weeks are just not helping anything out, but the defense is awful. It really is. I'll talk about it later, but I think that scoreboard is going to be very high on Sunday because it's going to be a long day for Carolina. It really is. So, what are your guys' thoughts on Ever? I know we touched on it last week. I know there's been rumblings. We all know that Robert Saleh got fired. We know the connection with Canales. Where are you at with Evero at this point in the season? Statistically, they're not doing very well. We'll talk about that more later with the actual numbers. But where are you at with Evero? Do you want to see this guy finish the season as the DC? Would you like to see a change by the bye week? Where are you at with him?
Well, with Evero, there's no benefit in getting rid of him. I mean, you're going to have Chris Cooley, D'Angelo Hall, Tim Lukabu, who I like. I like Tim, but these are all his staff, right? Like this is what he compiled, and I think that Bryson and Curtis, you both brought these things up, and I think that they're critical points. The communication and fundamentals, man. But for Evero, his specialty is the secondary. That is where he's made his bones. That is where he kind of supposedly masked everything last year, right? There's a world of context that goes into last year's statistical numbers. And when you look at this year, he brought in guys that he's familiar with. And the communication should have been a little bit more seamless. Now, granted, Jordan Fuller's hurt. A'Shawn Robinson, I think, has been a nice addition. But then you talk about like the Josie Jules and all that kind of stuff. It's just weird that there's all of these mental errors. And the fundamental part of it, to me, screams coaching. Like that's the only way that I would know how to rationalize the fact that this team refuses to wrap up tackles. You talk about Xavier Woods. Part of the reason that his year was so quiet was because he was fundamentally sound. He wasn't a beacon where you were drawn to him on a week-by-week basis, right? but he also never was called out singly or solely because of huge blown plays and misses and things of that nature. This year, we're seeing that almost all around this defense. So as far as Evero goes, I mean, look, man, if a team still believes in him and thinks, look, he's been strapped because of this lack of talent on this defense for the Carolina Panthers, if he gets a head coaching job, I'm not saying that that's likely at this point, but if for some reason someone really does like Evero and they want to bring him in for a head coaching job, if you get rid of him in the middle of the year, you're giving up a 3rd round pick.
Thank you.
Because that's a compensatory pick. So, like, I would not at all get rid of Evero for the slight chance that somebody still believes him. And because Curtis, you said it, like, it's not like the dude forgot to coach. They're just having a rough go of it right now at the beginning of this season. And I think that what also sucks for us is that our bye week is far down the road, because last year I thought that Evero did some pretty nice adjusting at the bye week. So I was kind of looking forward to that. But then when you look at it, we're liable to be 2-10, 1-11, whatever, come the bye week. That's a tough thing to deal with. But no, I would keep him. Sorry for holding up all the time here. I would keep Evero. I don't think there's much of a benefit for moving him.
Before Bryson jumps in, I just want to get to the chat real quick. Zachary Hernandez, appreciate it. You love the podcast. We also love Ricky and think he's a great addition as well.
That's an interesting question that he says there too, right? The thoughts
and we'll
on
get into
adding
that.
Kevin White.
Yes, yeah, we'll get into that a little bit here.
Hold on, Zach.
So we'll get back to you, Zach, on that. But I want to just Matt in the chat. Something's wrong when the current sack leader gets cut every week. I would agree with that. I really like this perspective. No pass rush, not enough man-to-man coverage, barring the injuries. Defense feels like we put a screen door on a submarine and said a door is better than no door. Love the analogy. I know Ricky's a big analogy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fire.
So that's a good one. Bryson, just tailing off that comment, just thoughts on Coach E?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not ready to move on from him 5 weeks into the season. This is a guy last year that had multiple head coaching interviews that we were all high on because we saw what he did on the field with that team last year. I think it all comes back to the pass rush. The secondary has to defend for so long because there's no pressure on the quarterback. And you go back to last year, of course, we had Brian Burns, we had guys like YGM, we had a healthy Derek Brown. So that pass rush was getting there way more often than they are at this point in the season. And that kind of took a little pressure off the secondary. But now, I mean, you're asking the secondary to cover for 5, 6, 7 seconds at a time. And that's just really hard to do in the NFL. So you're going to see more miscommunication. You're going to see more guys open, streaking down the field. That's just the nature of the beast at this point. So until we can manufacture some more pressure and, guys like Clowney step up and maybe some of these additions we brought in do that too, I think we're going to continue to see some of those issues. But as far as the communication aspect and the fundamentals, that's something that can be corrected. And I expect it to be corrected under Evero because I still do think he is a really good coach. And eventually, I believe he will be a head coach at some point. So good leader, his players love him. I think he's got everything you need. It's just you got to fix what's wrong, and I expect that from him because, like Ricky said, last year he made some really good adjustments during that bye week, and he's a coach that's shown he can do that. So I'm expecting that from him moving forward, and to this point, no, I'm not ready to move on.
Ricky, do you think though switching back to the 4-3 solves all these issues? Because I don't. I just think this team is so riddled by injury, and what they brought in this offseason defensively was not enough. It wasn't.
No, I don't think that it's a problem solver by any means, but part of that is because of, like you just said, the injuries and the personnel that we have right now. I think the big reason why people don't want to be in the 3-4, and Evero and the Panthers staff can deny this all they want to, but the lack of a true nose tackle makes the 3-4 kind of moot, man. Like if you don't have that big body, that strong anchor in the middle of there that is going to cause double teams, that is going to allow the benefit of having, those linebackers, more speed on there instead of having the defensive front being able to allow them to run around. If you don't have somebody that's going to limit the athletic interior offensive lineman, the center or the guard, whether even it's a tight end, whatever it may be, if you don't have somebody that's going to limit their ability to reach that second level, those second level defenders are not as important. So you would be better off having more in the front. And our personnel with Derek Brown would be a better interior lineman on a 4-3, I think. I think he's a better 3 tech in a 3-4. So, like, you got to figure out what you're doing with the personnel. I think that if you do switch to a 4-3, I think that you could run a whole lot of different concepts with the personnel that we currently have on the roster. You guys touched on it with JC Horn, man. That's, I think, the biggest gripe. You've got this incredible press man cover corner, and you're asking him to play zone 60% of the game. You know what I mean? Like, you got Mike Jackson, you signed Dane Jackson. Those two kinds of guys are who you signed to play corner in a zone scheme because you're not asking them to play man. But if you got the guy that can do it, why aren't you letting him? Like, there's got to be a way to keep Mike Jackson, Dane Jackson, those kinds of players insulated, but also not neuter JC Horn's ability to be one of the most effective, dominant defenders that you have on the roster.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing, too, with why I think I defend Evero so much is Mike Jackson was like, what? A week before the season, the guy was signed. Dane Jackson was a Dan Morgan guy. He wasn't an Evero guy. So, like, he was giving these guys and say, here you go. Like, so I don't know. I just feel like, and I get it. There was that he got a lot of his guys, A'Shawn Robinson, Jordan Fuller, Josie Jewell. Guys that came over that honestly didn't break the bank for them to sign. But I don't know. I just feel like and I think it goes back to Aries' clear comment about I feel like it just was a patchwork, shoddy ass job that they tried to do with this defense, and, hope the offense was going to pick up the pace more to help alleviate and take the pressure off the defense a little bit. And obviously that didn't happen. But I kind of want to mention, I wanted to ask you guys this because maybe I thought about this wrong, or I swear when A'Shawn Robinson was signed initially, at least through the media, at least from what I read, was that he was supposed to be the nose tackle. Wasn't that initially thought? And they actually asked, I feel like they asked the coach about that. And then he's like, no, he is going to be, he's going to be opposite Derek Brown. I thought initially early on Robinson was going to be the nose tackle for them. Am I getting that wrong?
Yeah, I think it was the opposite. I think that all they ever said was that he was not going to play nose. And that A'Shawn even said that too, that he wasn't going to play nose. I thought that's what I remembered. I could be wrong.
Okay. I guess. Okay.
And I do not remember anything. So it could be either.
And
I thought early on, like before he was even came into the building, I thought it was, this guy is our next nose tackle. And then they're like, no. He is going to be opposite Derek Brown. Shai Tuttle's still the guy in the middle.
I think that might have been more fan anticipation just because of his size. You know what I mean? That they thought he was the biggest guy on our line, so he's going to play that. But I think it's very, very different. Now, I'm pretty positive that A'Shawn came out and was like, no, I don't play nose tackle. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, he did. I remember that. And I think that was the thing. Like, it was the impression like, dude, this guy's massive. Why the hell is he the nose tackle? Let's get to Zachary Hernandez's question that he brought up earlier, because I do think it's interesting as well with the Devin White situation. Carolina's obviously short in that linebacker room. What do you guys think of this? Thoughts on adding him to the roster?
I think why not? They're adding name brand pieces elsewhere throughout that defense, including mostly the defensive line, but it's a room that obviously we all know has suffered injuries, and we don't know when Jules going to be back. Shaq's out for season. Trevin Wallace was so-so in his debut, came away with a lot of tackles, but really struggled in some areas that Ricky highlighted on earlier. I think, throw the dart at the dartboard and see if it hits. Devin White I don't think he played at all with the Eagles. So I don't know what's up with that. I'm sure there's a bit of a drop off for him at this point, but I don't know how much worse it is than what we have now with the depth and Clawless and then Wallace as well. And then, like I said, don't know when Jules coming back. So, adding a veteran to that room that potentially has something left in the tank. I don't see where the issue is if he's willing to sign in Carolina, which is another thing. Like, do you want to come and lose, get blown out every week and just essentially collect a paycheck, or are you trying to like hold out and wait to get to a contender? I think that's a big question mark surrounding him.
Ricky, do you think White has got anything left in the tank to help Carolina right now?
personally, I'm not a big Devin White fan at this stage of his career. I think that Devin White was a absolutely disruptive menace on the defensive side of the football for the Buccaneers for a long time, right? My problem with White is his rush defense isn't very good. He's not very good against the run. Our linebackers right now have to be decent against the run because our defensive front is porous. You're gonna get that running back is gonna reach you 9 times out of 10. So you have to be ready to do that. Now, tackling wasn't never like a super low mark for him as a player. His coverage left a world to be desired. And again, I think that with Shaq out, Trevin is a better coverage linebacker probably right now because of his athleticism and speed and instinct to play the ball. But what do you do with Devin White, man? Like, what does he make better? I don't think that he's better than Claude Cherylus right now, which is a
veteran
indictment. Yeah. I mean, the veteran presence maybe, but you still got Shaq in the locker room. You still have Josie in the locker room. So, like, if it's about communication and about identifying errors in game and stuff like that, those players can still do that. Those players can still help with that. It's not like they're relegated to the locker room during the game. You know what I mean? Like,
but I think there's value. I think there's value to have a guy like that in the middle next to Trevin if Josie Jewell's out for long term and you're not going with Cherylus.
Is there value in having him now, or is there value in what he was 3 years ago being in that huddle right now? Because I think that if you're overcompensating for that player, if he has clear weaknesses, and then you're asking maybe the young guy, Trevin Wallace, to pick up slack instead of playing the way that you would play, I don't know, man. I think that I think that complicates the defense when you bring in who was the guy that we brought in last year, the linebacker Deion Jones, and everyone was kind of hyped about that, and they're like, man, Deion Jones is going to come in here and he's going to provide a really big charge. Deion Jones, and here's my honest opinion, was a better player at that stage of his career last year than Devin White is at this stage of his career. So I think that, again, we'll give Aries Claire here another shout out. That's another screen door, man. And we're staring down the face of oncoming water. So for me, I would hold off on that. I would just let Trevin get all the reps he can here. Hope that Josie Jewell's back in a week or two and see how that pairing works instead of Claude and Trevin.
Let's talk about a guy that they just added. So Panthers signed Deshaun Williams at 53. He was on the practice squad. And then they've finally a guy they've been trying out for a bit here. Shaq Lawson, he's added to the practice squad. Just real quick, your guys' thoughts on Shaq Lawson. Again, this guy's obviously older, but they're doing what they can, trying to turn the back end of the roster to try to provide some sort of boost. You think he adds anything to this defense, Bryson?
We'll see. We'll see, man. They're trying. I got to give them that. They're trying to add whatever they can to that, opposite side of Jadeveon Clowney to get some pass rush. Shaq Lawson, I believe, when he last year played for the Bills, only had like 1 sack, like 7 quarterback pressures in the games that he played in. I think he played in 17. And so, yeah, I mean, that's not great numbers that you would hope for from your starter opposite of Clowney. But, we just haven't had anyone on this team up to this point that has been able to produce pretty much anything on that side. And when they did, they cut the guy. So I believe he's with the Steelers practice squad now. I think, they're throwing darts at the dartboard and hoping that it works. Deshaun Williams, a guy that's familiar with the scheme, they're suffering injuries big time there and just someone familiar with the team. So, adding him. But one thing about one other note about Devin White, I looked up his age because I was like, is this guy like super old? Like, why is he falling off? He's 26 years old. So I don't understand, like, where's the drop off in play coming from? Like, he should be getting better. Like, he should be reaching his prime right now. And he's, I don't understand that, but maybe he comes in under Evero and changes things and plays a different style and shows improvement. But I think, like Shaq Lawson, it's worth a dart throw to see if he shows improvements. I mean, this is arguably the worst defense in the NFL, and taking chances to improve anything at this point, I think is worth it.
Ricky, I'm not going to harp too much on this, so I'm going to just move on to one more question about the defense, and then we'll kind of slide over to the offense here. Robert Saleh. So let's say the scenario plays out. They bring him in the offseason. How happy, how excited would you be with that pick, and do you think he would provide a boost for this team defensively?
I don't know, man. It's kind of hard to say that for me personally, because what are they adding to the defense? If you're asking me if Robert Saleh came in here and took a core defense of this like 95% of this exact same group, right, with maybe like one impact rookie or somebody added to it, I'm not all that joyous about anybody coaching the defense, if you want my honest opinion. And I don't expect much room for improvement from anybody that would come in here, because I just think that we are very, very devoid of talent on the defensive side of the football. What I like about the possibility about Robert Saleh, he covets pass rushers. When you see what they did to the New York Jets, they had 2 or 3 legitimate, like, I think it was Bryce Huff, Hassan Reddick, and who was the other guy that they had on the other side? They had 3 or 4.
Leonard
like,
Williams at one point. They've had a lot.
I mean, they had legitimate. That's what I was getting to, is they had 2 or 3 already, and then in the first round of the 2023 draft, they drafted a guy that I was super high on, Will McDonald, and I think it surprised a lot of people because they were like, positionally, that doesn't make a whole ton of sense. But now he's like, what, second in the league, I think, right now in sacks for the year. He's got like over 5 sacks, I think, already. Jermaine Johnson, Sir Hendog, thank you, man. That was the first round pick they got out of Florida State the year prior, if I remember correctly, or 2 years prior. So, like, one thing about Saleh is that he desires players differently than Evero does. And I think what I'm getting burned out with the Evero thing is this emphasis on being the best edge setter and run defender at that outside linebacker position, with the stubbornness of staying with the 3-4 for the sake of his scheme. But we're also like the second to last rush defense. So why are we emphasizing this aspect of the game and we can't do that well when we're cutting guys like we talked about Shaq Lawson? Man, the only thing I hope for Shaq Lawson, I hope he doesn't come in here and get a sack, or else he'll be looking for another job. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I worry about. You come in here and you show a little bit of worth as a pass rusher, they're gonna be like, hey man, we don't do that here in Carolina. I'm gonna need you to hit the books, bud. So what I am hoping is that he comes in and just does a little bit and kind of sneaks in some pressure. But yeah, for Robert Saleh, man, look, I like him. I think he's a good defensive coordinator. I think there will be a lot of people that want his services. Mm-hmm. I think that San Francisco would even be interested in bringing him back. So I think you're going to have some competition for him if he wants to come here because of his relationship with Dave Canales. Canales has spoken about that multiple times, known him for 13 or 14 years, said they're good friends. Cool, man. I'll go for it. But at this point, man, I'll go for just about any kind of change because I'm tired of the same old.
All right, let's go to the offense now. A lot to talk about there with there's a lot. We can take this. Let's start with probably the elephant in the room, and that's the run game. We had a coach, come in, he said he was going to be stubborn with the run. And stubborn with the run. And when you don't think he's going to run some more. And I tried to warn everyone this season, the guy's going to run the ball even when you don't want him to run the ball. And then for some reason, he's not running the ball when it's been working, which is mind-boggling. I mean, Chuba Hubbard at one point was averaging 10 yards a carry on Sunday. I think he ended with 13 carries on the day. And I know Ricky was all over this on Twitter. I was too, probably middle of the game I know people are going to say, it was out of hand, but that game really wasn't out of hand until like after halftime. Like it was in a manageable, you're only down 2 scores maybe. And you look at those first couple offensive series, I went back and looked at them. Chuba would get 5, and then an 8, and then he had the 34-yard run for a touchdown. But in between there, we're running with Deontay Johnson on jet sweeps. They're doing short passes, and I'm like, what are we doing? I feel like we were trying to get too, pretty with our own shit here, and it's just like, let's do what works. Like, let's keep feeding Chuba. It was working, and I think they got away from that way too quickly. And I kind of know where you guys are headed with this, but what was your guys' take with this run game? Because it doesn't make sense to me. And I know Joe asked about it in the chat about Jonathan Brooks. what are you going to do when he comes back? Because we're not running the ball enough to get any of these guys carries, really. It's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah, you come out the first drive of the game and just run the ball down the Bears' throats, which we all said last week on this podcast that was the way to attack this defense. And it worked. It worked beautifully. And then the game proceeds to go on, and Chuba is involved less and less in the run game. And then the game gets quote unquote out of hand, and you got to pass the ball to try to get back in the game. The passing game wasn't working. So why not turn around and go back to the one aspect of the game that was, the most efficient running back in the NFL, like Zach says in the chat, Chuba Hubbard. I mean, the offensive line was opening up holes, and I feel like it was there to be had. And the coach, for whatever reason, thinking 14 points is too much, to be down too much to run the ball. He tries to rely on the passing game, which the receivers weren't getting open against a really good Bears secondary. And, you continue to go 3 and out, get a first down, punt the ball. And then that's when the game continues to get out of hand. And then you definitely, and now you're really looking at not being able to run the ball because you're down 20, 30 points. And, he just digs this hole for himself every week. When you go back and you look through the game scripts for each game, the games where Chuba has ran the ball the most, we won the one where he had the most carries, and the second most carries was the Bengals game. That was the closest game we've been in that we lost. So you got to involve him at a high level moving forward for this team to have any chance to win, which is in turn is going to open up things for Dalton in that passing game. I don't understand his thinking. He is not running the ball stubbornly. He's not running the ball really at all to a level that needs to be done with this team, with this offensive line that they paid hundreds of millions of dollars to improve, and they excel in the run game. But unfortunately, the coach, I don't know. Maybe he just has a thing against Chuba because he was drafted under rule, and it's just frustrating to like look at it and say, oh my God, this is working. This looks really good, and then you go away from it, and your offense sputters, and you get blown out of the game. It's frustrating.
I think he's making rookie mistakes as a head coach. He's getting away from things that are working because the scoreboard, you might get away from it by two or a couple scores. And I feel like some of our other coaches, and I hate to go back to this, I feel like they haven't done that. I feel like they're almost too stubborn at some points. And I feel like for him, he's just trying to play catch up, and he's getting, I don't know if it's, he's getting scatterbrained. He's like, oh shit, we need to get in this game. Let's keep passing now. Let's get passing. But there is no reason why Chuba doesn't have 20 carries a game. There is no reason why he doesn't. Like, any other team is pounding the shit out of the ball with this guy. Like, he's catching the ball in the backfield. He's running the ball well. There's no reason why Chuba is not getting 20 plus carries in a game when your defense is struggling and you need to be eating up clock the way it is. And I don't care if you're down 2 scores. Pound the ball, it's working, and then run play action off of that, which that's what's been his formula. But anyway, Ricky, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. This will probably lead into my initial rant of the evening, so I apologize in advance for anybody, but I'm going to probably get a little bit annoyed with this. Because where this has also brought it back to is everyone keeps saying, well, what do you expect him to do, man? He's got the worst roster in the NFL. Let me ask you a question, man. Before this season began, would you have told me that this was the worst roster in the NFL? Because I don't think you would have. I wouldn't have. And think about the offense for a second, because that's what we're really talking about, right? In 2023, you drafted a quarterback first overall. And so that's somebody who's supposed to be a very good player, or supposed to at least be an adequate player. You bench him after 2 games. Okay, maybe he earned it. But guess what? You get your veteran, Andy Dalton, that Canales is supposed to be able to work magic with. These veterans, right, that just need a little bit of ushering in for his new system, and they can really execute it at a high level. The offensive line has played like a top 10 unit all season. And that's coming from the awful horror show that we saw last season on the offensive line. Chuba Hubbard is a top 5 performer at running back right now. Top 5. Deontay Johnson, you traded for him. Everyone said Deontay Johnson was a legitimate NFL wide receiver, right? Adam Thielen, coming off of a 1,000-yard season. Yeah, man, it was force fed to him, but he's still a reliable pass catcher. He could still get to his spot. He's still a good route runner. Now, he's injured. I get that, but he wasn't for the first 2.5 weeks, right? Then you go and you trade up to draft Xavier Legette in the first round. He barely sees the field for the first couple of weeks. Now, all of a sudden, he's playing, and he looked like he was probably our most dynamic player outside of Deontay Johnson and Chuba Hubbard. And he gets injured last game. I get that. But he also had one target through the 2 quarters that he did play. If you're going to throw the football, I would much rather you be throwing it to a guy like Xavier Legette than Jonathan Mingo a handful of times. Jonathan Mingo, let's go ahead and touch on that. He's in his second year. Did he develop at all? Has he progressed at all under these wide receiver coaches that are now offensive coordinators and head coaches? I haven't seen any development. Not a single lick of development from Jonathan Mingo. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not trying to pile on him, but as a player, has he gotten better in any field? I don't think so. But he's also a second-round pick. You can say he was overdrafted all you want to. We have a first-round pick, a second-round pick, Chuba Hubbard, a top 5 running back, and an offensive line that's in the top 10. And you're telling me that our offense should be the 26th, 29th ranked offense, 32nd in points, whatever it may be? I don't see that, man. That's not a good excuse to me. I'm really tired of people making excuses for it. It's incompetent so far. And I'm not saying that Dave Canales can't get better, but Curtis, you said it, man. They're not even giving him 20 carries because during that first half, Chuba had 4 carries, right? I think it was 4 carries, maybe 6 through the third quarter. That's crazy. And the other part of this is it's not even about the offensive production. Your defense is struggling. Your defense is giving up big plays. Your defense is hemorrhaging yardage. You know how you can limit that or help them a little bit? Change that time of possession, man. And do you know how you do that? Extended drives. Run the football. Take time off the play clock on first and second down. You brought it up. Chuba was taking off 5 or 6 yards on first and second downs. And then you move away from him. You bring in Miles Sanders. You say, well, we did run the ball. We just ran it with Miles. Why? In the first half, why? Was Chuba gassed? I doubt it. As hard as that dude works, as good a shape as he's in, he's not gassed. You saw Robert Hunt in 2 different games this year go absolutely nuts when they were running the football. How happy he was, jubilated, and telling the coaching staff, let's keep going, man. Look at us. We're doing this. And then Canales is like, I hear you, bud. Let's go the opposite way with it. I don't know, man. It's very frustrating to me, and I don't really like the whole conversation about this is the worst the worst roster in the league. I look at teams like the New England Patriots that have, Ricky Raines and Bryson Karbley on the offensive line right now for them, and they're playing for Jacoby Brissett. But you want to tell me that we have the worst team in the league, the worst roster? I don't buy that, man. The Miami Dolphins without Tua, how have they been? It's just there's just no excuse. Pat Mahomes is throwing the ball to Juju Smith-Schuster, or at least the ghost of Juju Smith-Schuster, and Justin Watson, Noah Gray, Carson Steele, and they're like the 11th best offense in the league. So I don't know, man. Never mind. Whatever. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's bullshit.
I did no. I mean, you're preaching to a preacher. You really are, because this offense, and like you said, our offensive line isn't an issue, and there would be teams out there that would dream to have the offensive line we got right now, and we are doing jack shit with it. And I think it's to a foul. I do think it's his rookie. It's just rookie mistakes by a head coach. When this stuff is working, you might get down a couple scores. He's pressing, and you cannot press in this league. He almost has to double down. Double down and run the ball and keep running the ball. Be like Steve Wilkes. That man created an identity for the offense in a fucking week. In a week's time as interim head coach, that guy told you, I'm going to run the ball down your fucking throat, and even when you stack the box, I'm going to still run the ball. And that was the identity of this team, and I don't know why they're not leaning into that when you have the success you do with Chuba Hubbard. Any other team would be pounding the rock for how bad the roster is. Everyone talks about how bad the roster is. They would be pounding the rock and limiting the passing. And we're doing the complete opposite. I mean, we're going out there and trying to pass the ball. And it's hurting the defense. The defense, again, they're 3 and out. And I get it. The third down conversions have to get better. That needs to set things up. But I think that's a piss poor excuse. I really do. I mean, they need to be running the damn ball. And the Miles Sanders argument as well. That guy should not be on the field as much as he is. He's terrible. He sucks. You paid him way too much money. Deal with it and move on. The guy he's been dog shit. He has. And he made the one good play with Bryce Young at the end of the game. And then you see 2 plays later, he makes the same mistakes where he literally sits on the route and doesn't come back to the ball. And people want to give Bryce Young shit for it, when that guy should have came back for the ball and caught the damn pass. Like, he makes so many similar mistakes, and I'm going on a rant here, but you talked about Mingo too. That guy has not made any progression. And we were dead wrong about him in training camp. I'll admit that. I thought he looked way better than he did last year. And then the minute it's Sunday, the guy shrivels up and he's nowhere to be found. He really isn't. He has sucked up to this point. He has been one of the biggest disappointments next to Terrace Marshall Jr. And he's healthy, which is the most crazy thing about it, because you have guys like Tank Dell, the entire Packers wide receiver room that was drafted that year after him, and all these other guys across the league dominating. And we have Jonathan Mingo, who dives for a ball that was thrown to him and gets our center out for the season because of his lackadaisical ass. He's been ass. I mean, he's been ass. And I understand Andy Dalton. I understand that Andy Dalton could have let that ball out and could have probably let him better.
Right.
But that guy, time and time again, has made some bonehead adjustments. We talk about the one last year at Bryce Young where he literally kept running when Bryce Young threw it to a spot, and he was like this. And if you saw it this week, I don't know if anyone picked up on it. He did it again on a play where it was literally thrown to a spot, and he went like this. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're making the same mistake over and over again. I'm done ranting. It's been pathetic, though, offensively. It's been bad.
And you guys bring up the getting down too far, right? And let's talk about this game specifically. Second quarter, or halftime, we're down 27-7, right? That was a halftime score. That's a 20-point deficit. You know how many points the Bears scored in the second quarter? 20 points. So I'm confused on why you would say that we couldn't possibly score 10-13 in the 2 quarters that we had left in that game by doing what you do well and limiting how often the Bears offense is on the field. That's what I look at it as. We're not down 37-3 at the half where we need 34 points in 30 minutes. You're down 20 with 30 minutes to play. The problem is they look at our offense, they say, all right, look, if we got 30 minutes to play, we're going to have the ball for about 7 of them. We better start getting out there and chucking the ball because we're not going to have it for very long. It's a loser mentality. Get out there, play your brand of football. Do not let the defense dictate what you want to do. You inflict your will on the defense. Every single game, come out with that mentality. What we do. But you know what? Maybe here's the problem. That's called having an identity. And maybe we don't have that. Maybe our coach doesn't have that right now. I don't know. I really can't circle what it is because we're just fans sitting here being angry and yelling at each other on the internet. But I can promise you this. Somebody in that locker room has to feel a little bit similar to what we're feeling right now. And it might be that giant dude wearing number 50 saying, man, y'all brought me in here to whoop people's asses and clear lanes for a run. And instead you got Andy Dalton chucking the ball around to Jonathan Mingo. I promise you that's not a whole ton of fun for that guy.
All right, Bryson, you're chomping at the bit. Let's go. What do you got with this offense?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on Mingo because I'm not sure that there was a bigger Mingo supporter going into this year than me. I was really high on him. I invested a lot of money on his rookie football cards because I felt like those were going to gain in value after this year. With Bryce Young throwing him the ball and both of them progressing, and I've lost a decent amount of money in that. I think if you're going to bench somebody for not showing progress and kind of just being out there on the field, not making any positive plays, they bench Bryce Young. You got to bench Mingo at this point. I think it's time. Unfortunately, he has showed zero progress. I would say at the end of last year, he was better than he is now. And that's the same thing with Bryce Young. At the end of last year, Bryce Young was better than he showed us in the first 2 weeks of the season. So I think you have players like Coker who go out and lead the team in receiving, an undrafted rookie, and looked 10 times more aware on the field of his surroundings and catching the ball, yards after catch, being able to stay up. And Curtis, you mentioned the pass from Dalton where he jumped and then he got up, and I was 90% sure the ball was going to be stripped when he got up and 3 Bears defenders were tackling him.
Dude, same.
I was like, he's about to fumble. He's about to fumble, and thank God he didn't. But it's just he has he just has no awareness of what's going on as a wide receiver, and it's frustrating because, again, Ricky mentioned he was drafted in the second round. Yeah, he might have been overdrafted, but there were a lot of scouts and a lot of NFL media that were high on Mingo, and he was good in college, and he just hasn't shown anything besides in training camp this past
Bryson,
year.
you want to take this question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think 100% you have to, from what Coker showed you last week and what Mingo hasn't showed you since he's been in Carolina. I think Coker balled out in his pretty much debut of being involved in the offense and made catches when they needed it on a third down. He was able to stay up after getting hit and get yards after the catch. And I think he just showed field awareness. He showed the ability to catch the ball, showed the ability to run with it. I think Coker needs to be involved at a higher clip than what he has been over Mingo, because Mingo has not done anything besides being able to block in the run game. He is good at that, but they don't run the fucking ball, so it doesn't matter. So you got to get a wide receiver out there that can catch and get open and stay in the field of play when you have a ball thrown to a certain spot, instead of running out of bounds to go sit on the bench because it's third down and you think it's over anyways. I think, you move on from that. And when Leggett gets back, I just don't know. It's like Miles Sanders at this point. Why are you involving him now? Like, you have other players that have shown more. I am so sick of seeing number 6 on the field. He 9 times out of 10 when that man touches the ball, it's going for 0 yards. He dances too much behind the line. He fucking that play that you mentioned, Curtis, where Bryce threw him the ball and he just stood there like an idiot and didn't come back towards it. I was like, oh my God, are you trying to let the world rip Bryce's head off, if I can get it out, because you're not doing your part when Bryce throws you a ball, and that could have easily been an interception if that corner wasn't completely behind Miles Sanders. So it's frustrating. I would absolutely involve Coker at a higher level. Start him over Mingo for sure. I think Coker showed us a flash of something in last week that Mingo hasn't showed at all. So yeah, there's a lot of areas, a lot of head scratchers with this coaching staff. Ricky mentioned them not having an identity. I don't know, like, if they're ever going to be under Canal as a punch you in the mouth team, because he's not a punch you in the mouth coach. He's the nice guy, the positive, optimistic guy, and he's just. I would love to be in there for like a halftime speech. It's definitely not one that you would hear from like a Robert Saleh or a coach of that sort. I would imagine it's, come on guys, we got this. Keep your heads up. Let's go out there and try our best and have fun, and we'll see what happens. And instead of what these guys need, and they need to be motivated. And you see some of the players on the field like pregame doing it, like Chuba Hubbard and Shaq Thompson when he was healthy on the field, like getting these guys amped and ready to go. I don't know if Canals brings that.
I just want to say one thing and harp on Miles Sanders quickly, and I hate going back to previous regimes, but I don't think it gets talked enough that Miles Sanders was one of the worst signings that Scott Fitterer did in his time here.
Awful.
Because they overpaid him as a running. He was one of the most highest paid free agent running backs last year and didn't play up to what they paid him. And this guy was supposed to be the quote-unquote 3-down back. And I remember, and you can go listen to the episodes when we talked about it. I didn't want Miles Sanders. I wanted Deontay Foreman still on this team, and they made a mistake not keeping him because they brought this guy in. And you know who the 3-down back was? It was Chuba Hubbard. He was still on your roster. He had no business going out and getting Miles Sanders because he had one great season in Philadelphia with one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So awful decision. He's overpaid. You probably can't deal him. And maybe that's what they're trying to do right now, is trying to show the rest of the league, like, hey, Miles can do this, but he still can't do it when he's out there. So,
yeah, that's hustling backwards, though, isn't it? If you're trying to showcase what you have, then sit him on the bench and let people think. Let them guess. Because if you keep showing them, it's just they're going to be like, all right, so you want me to spend, what, $6 million a year for a cap hit to sign that? They're not going to do that and give you draft capital. They're not going to do it. Can I touch real quick on the Coker thing? Just like one last piece. What he can add to the offense specifically right now with Adam Thielen out, his ability from the slot. We talk about field awareness and spatial awareness and knowing how to run routes. And that's the thing that impressed me about Coker in that game. his route running is smooth. He can gain leverage off of his release, where there was the longest play that he had was the out route to the sideline, where he also broke a tackle. His yards after catch was unexpected for me a little bit. His contact balance, his ability to play through those arm tackles. Now, look, he's not a speedster. He's not an overly shifty guy, right? Like start-stop isn't necessarily his game. You're not going to run screen passes to Jalen Coker. That's not where you're going to do it. But you also shouldn't be running screen passes to Adam Thielen. Jalen Coker, for the time being, can get the Adam Thielen treatment in a way in that slot position, which allows Deontay to continue to man that X, and then allows Xavier Legette to be the flanker, where you can move him in and out, put him in motion, get him involved on those jet sweeps instead of Jonathan Mingo, get him involved on deep concepts. Like, there are ways that Jalen Coker can almost make this offense whole while Adam Thielen is out. Jonathan Mingo does not bring that. So regardless what you want to say about like physicality, yeah, Jonathan Mingo is best used in the slot because of his physical advantages, but he's not a traditional slot player. He's a power slot receiver in theory, in practice, right? Jalen Coker is a very efficient player out of the slot, in my opinion. At least he projects to be in the NFL because of his route running and his release package. I think that if you can do that and you can count on a guy, there was the 3rd and 6 play that I also posted the highlight of. He ran the route to the sticks. You know how many times last season we saw DJ Chark, Jonathan Mingo, all of those guys on a 3rd and 5 run a 4-yard hitch? You know what I mean? Like, we've got a guy that knows exactly what he's supposed to do, and it's an innate ability to play that position. That is something that we don't have outside of Deontay Johnson, probably even more so than Xavier Legette right now. Xavier Legette is a much better physical specimen, but you want to talk about the nuance and technicalities of playing the wide receiver position? Jalen Coker, who is not a physical freak, kind of had to learn that, right? I think of Jordy Nelson a little bit. And Curtis, I know that you're a Green Bay Packers fan. There's something about his game that reminds me a little bit about Jordy Nelson. There's a little bit of something. Maybe it's just the accent. I just figure you're a Green Bay fan. Sorry, man.
Ricky, I can show you.
Yeah, you can show me that he is a Green Bay Packers fan, right?
I was at one
point.
It, man.
I was. There's a cheesehead behind that printer over there. I can tell.
Hell no.
But I think that he brings that kind of similar element. I don't think that he plays on the outside as much as Jordy, but I think as a possession receiver, a technical route runner that can be a quarterback's friend, I just think that you find out what you have with him, man. So I would love to see him play that slot role in this offense right now.
Yeah, I want to eat some crow with Coker. There you go. That should be the headline. And I'm not gonna. I'll be honest. Like I loved his story coming out. I thought he was a great story coming out. I just didn't see a whole lot from him in training camp because I don't think he got a lot of opportunities. I'm not going to go and say I love this guy and buttered him up because there's folks out there on Twitter that do that, and you know who you are, but that's not going to be me. I didn't butter this guy up in training camp. I didn't think he'd make the roster. But what I found out against Chicago.
Do we have a gunshot sound effect that we could do? Because that was shots fired, right?
It was. What I can tell you, what I saw from him in Chicago was he's dependable. He can be dependable. He's not flashy. He finds soft spots in zones like Adam Thielen, and he did a damn good job at it as a rookie. And I agree with you, Ricky. I did not see his play or after the catch ability, and he proved that on Sunday. There was a couple plays where he broke one off of a missed tackle. I'm like, damn, this guy's got some game to him. And the third down you mentioned, I thought was huge. Like, not a lot of rookies can do that. And that was it was a tight ball to him. He was covered really well, sticky coverage, and he found a way to still catch that ball. Jonathan Mingo's dropping that. He's dropping that ball. Like, I don't have the trust in him to make that play. And Coker proved that as a rookie, and I think he deserves more playing time. And I'll eat crow on that. I'm fine with that. I don't think he got enough opportunity in training camp, and I didn't see a whole hell of a lot from him when he was in there. So, but hats off to him. I thought he played really well in Chicago, and I hope he gets more opportunities, and we'll see where it takes him. But, I agree. I think he deserves more playing time than Mingo at this point. I really do. So hopefully he gets some more action out there. Let's talk about the injury.
Well, hang on, Curtis. Hang on. But before we move on, I think there's one other player we got to talk about that's kind of been getting a pass and I want to get your guys' opinion on it. And that's the guy that's wearing number 0.
Oh
for
yes,
the
we'll talk.
Carolina
I'll talk
Panthers.
about him because I was the one that was wrong.
So what he had a very bad game, very, 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 very bad game. So Curtis, I'll let you start since it's your guy. But yeah, I mean, what's going on with Sanders? Jatavion, that is.
He is not ready to play. It's that simple. I thought he was ready. I thought he had moments in training camp where he made plays, and I'm like, holy shit, this guy could be the pass catching tight end we need. But he has made way too many rookie mistakes and drops to be out there right now. Now, I don't want to see 80 out there. I never want to see 80 on this team again. And he might be out there this week. It sounds like he's probably coming back with Dane Jackson this week. But Jatavion Sanders has made way too many rookie mistakes right now. And he was thrust into a position early on, and I hate it because I do think he's got promise, and I do like him more than, some of the other guys we got on this team in that room. And I do think he's got an ability to him. But to this point, I don't think he's ready. I don't. He's made way too many rookie mistakes for me. With an offense, you can't make a lot of mistakes. You just can't. Like, there's so much deficiency right now for this team offensively when there really shouldn't be, just like with the offensive line and the run game, the success that's had. But the mistakes, I mean, you make one or two that turns the whole game around. That forces Dave Canales to start throwing when you're only down 2 touchdowns. Like, that's just like, those type things can happen, and everything has to go right. And everything went right in that Las Vegas game. Everything went right for them. The calls with the refs, the run game went right. Dave Canales could do his play action. They got 3rd downs, and it was rolling, and everything was working. Defense got sacks. Special teams was good. But when 1 or 2 things go wrong, this whole team just goes awry, and it goes really bad very quickly. And when you have a rookie out there making mistakes like that, it hurts. It really does. And he struggled. I'm not going to deny that. He struggled mightily on Sunday. And he's had those every couple games where he gets a holding penalty or he drops a pass. And it's like, dude, you got to learn from, don't make the same mistake twice. And he's done that. So yeah, he struggled. There's no doubt about it. I still hate 80 though. I'll fall on that sword. I still hate 80.
What's kind of funny that you hate 80, but 80 might be a type of solution to 15 playing so much in a weird way, that if you can bring out a guy who's a great blocker, but you can keep Jalen Coker out on the field, you don't have to sub out a wide receiver for a wide receiver, you might be able to have, Ian Thomas is just a thicker Jonathan Mingo in a way, right? I mean, what's the difference? Like, and I'm saying that facetiously. I don't actually mean that they're the same player. Please, everyone understand that. But what they provide this offense currently, well, it's blocking, right? Like it's not so much as a receiving threat, but also Dave Canales spoke so highly about Ian Thomas as a receiving threat in training camp. So maybe he's just missing him, and he's using Jonathan Mingo in the Ian Thomas role until he gets healthy. But if Ian Thomas coming back does open up an opportunity, and look, Tommy Tremble got his head knocked off last week, so I don't see any way he could be cleared to play, man. The dude was out cold on the field. I think that would be absolutely irresponsible to let him play next week, personally. Even if he does clear concussion protocol, I'm sitting him for a week. I think that Ian Thomas is going to be an integral part just because, like you said, Jatavion Sanders is having a hard time. I'll be fair to Jatavion here first. Rookie tight ends don't find success a lot. That is the honest to God truth. I know we saw Sam Laporta light the world on fire, and so everyone thinks that you can replicate that very easily. It's just not the case. Now, pre-draft, I had Jatavion Sanders as my tight end 4, and I got pretty ridiculed for that. I was very high on Ben Sinnott, and a lot of people told me that I was crazy to have him over Jatavion Sanders. Now, Ben hasn't played much for the Commanders, so maybe I am crazy. We'll find that out later. But the reason why is Jatavion is not a good blocker, and he's not overly athletic. Legitimately, he is not overly athletic. That dude does not cut very well. He does not move laterally very well.
I think that's what a problem is, though. He was thrust into that role early on in this team. Is your tight ends are all hurt. You need to go in there and block. Like, I think they brought him in as he is going to be the pass catching tight end, and
I
that
think
was
that's
not
fair.
going to be. And I think he was thrust into that, and I think it's just been way too overwhelming for him. And I agree, he isn't a blocking tight end. He isn't.
And I think you're 100% correct on that. But it's frustrating when you hear the head coach say you don't need to be a blocking tight end to find success in our system. And so then he comes out and now you're right. His role maybe is different than what they want it to be. But even this past week and the week before when Tommy Tremble was playing, right? It's still the same thing. When you're running 12 personnel, you can't run 12 personnel and tell me that one of those guys isn't going to block. Because if I know that and you're going to broadcast that, guess who else knows that? The defense. Like, you can't do that in football. You cannot be so easy to guess in football and figure out. And I think that's been one of the glaring problems on both sides of the ball for this Carolina Panthers team, if you want my honest opinion. I think that Evero is exactly what he's been statistically. Cover 3 when the entire league is playing cover 2 and finding more success. Now, the problem with Sanders, though, if you are the possession tight end, you can't drop balls that hit you in the hands. You can't do it. And I don't really care what someone tried to tell me that pass from Andy Dalton was too high, that he overthrew it. Dog, he extended his hands. I'm not even full arm extension. He put them up around his ear level, and the ball went straight through his hands. I get it, man. Drops are going to happen for everybody. Not everybody's perfect. But your calling card, your nickname can't be Man Hands, right? Isn't that what his nickname was? Wasn't it Man Hands or something like that? First of all, we probably shouldn't call him that anymore. Like, even if it's not for the football part, maybe for the Diddy part. Like, maybe we just move Man Hands off the map, right? Let's just call him JT. But he earned 0 in training camp. And they made a big deal out of that, saying that he did every single thing that he needed to do to earn that. I don't know, man. I'm not seeing exactly what he's done that earned that outside of playing well in shorts and T-shirts.
But he wasn't dropping passes. That's the thing. Like, he's dropping passes now. He wasn't dropping passes in training camp. He wasn't. I remember showing the highlights. I remember videotape. I remember it. Like, the guy
Jonathan Mingo was balling. Jonathan Mingo was balling in training camp. Terrace Marshall Jr. was balling in training camp. Bryce Young was balling.
And I want to just mention Olsen. I think Olsen's an outlier. The dude was a stud at blocking. He got it in the pass game, and that was one of. We won a trade finally with Greg Olsen. Like, we won a trade with Greg Olsen. That was the one trade we scooped on the Bears. So I do appreciate that, Mike Hollinger, because I do agree with you. But I want to move on. Honestly, guys, I thought we'd talk way less tonight, and we're still talking about this damn team when they suck so bad. Let's go to injuries here, because I want to put this up for you guys, because I think it's important and what, we've been really dealing with if this ever shows up. Here we go. So here we go. This is wide ranging through literally the first several weeks of the season, but this is what the Carolina Panthers, who was a team that we all said in training camp, July, August, September, had no depth whatsoever. So when you lose Derek Brown after the first game, out for the season, Adam Thielen on injury reserve week 3, Shaq Thompson out for the year week 4, and then this past week on a bonehead play during Jonathan Mingo sucking again, Austin Corbett out for the season in what no one expected. I don't think anyone was thinking this guy was going to play at an all-pro level at center, and he really was. He was dominating at that center position. And now he is no longer, and he's out, which is what, the 3rd injury in the last 3 years. So I just wanted to talk about that for a minute, because I think it's important. Then we'll get on and we'll take a quick break after this. But let's just talk about these injuries for a minute, and we'll just start with Austin Corbett. Ricky, I want to go to you, because I know you were a big proponent this offseason, deservedly so, that Carolina should have taken a center in this draft. It was a position of plenty, I would say, in the draft. There was a lot of guys. You don't always get that at that center position. And Carolina decided to look the other way and not take one. And, I mean, for good reason, Corbett played really well, and they played their cards right at that position. But obviously the guy got hurt again. So, what are your thoughts on his injury and the way Carolina did not address this position in the draft this offseason.
I think it's a shame that he got injured because he was playing outstanding football. That's the first part that I would say about that. As far as the draft goes, I don't have a problem. Like, I think if anyone knows how I felt about like pre-draft process in the centers, I was huge on JPJ and Zach Frazier. I thought that Zach Frazier was criminally underrated. I thought that he was going to be a long stay center in the NFL immediately whenever he got drafted and the team decided to play him. He's going to be terrific. That looks to be fairly accurate. But I also really like Tanner Bortolini, your fellow dairy cow enthusiast. I thought that he was a very good player, and he's had a really good start to his career as well so far. There's other guys. Bo Limmer is over there with the Rams right now. He's had some snaps where he's playing very well as well. And these are guys that were drafted later. And that the reason that I bring them up is because of where they were drafted, right? You didn't have to not draft Xavier Legette or not draft Jonathan Brooks to get one of those guys. You still could have had those two. Now, do you miss out on Trevin Wallace potentially? Potentially, maybe, if you want to go that early. But what you really would probably miss out on is JT Sanders. Mm-hmm. Now, this is where me personally, I was very frustrated with it. I wasn't high on JT Sanders. That doesn't mean that I was right? And I don't really care if I was right or wrong about that. But I thought that if you're going to go into it with the experiment of Austin Corbett, I knew he was a smart player. I know he's a good football player. He's also coming off of significant injuries, and I worried that he was not going to be able to stay healthy. Now, this bicep injury is not related to his lower extremities, right? So I'm not going to make it seem like, see, told you. That's not it either. This is a shame that it happened. But contingency plans are necessary for a reason. Depth in the NFL is critical for a reason. And from free agency standpoint, there's not a lot of high-quality offensive linemen available. The depth across the league for quality offensive linemen is scarce. So when you have an opportunity to draft a guy that actually plays the position that you are thin at, that you don't have anyone that's ever played that position in the NFL on your roster, I thought it made some sense. Now, they did get Andrew Raum, undrafted free agent out of Oklahoma. He's cleared the protocol, it seems like, because I know that he had his bucket today. So maybe he gets activated so that he could play on Sunday. Maybe he'll be the backup to Brady Christensen. And to be fair to Brady Christensen, I thought that he played pretty adequately and actually pretty well in relief for Austin Corbett. So the only concern there is that Brady Christensen has value along that entire offensive line, especially now that Taylor Moton is injured. You got Yash is going to play over at right tackle, but what happens if Icky struggles? What happens if Icky gets hurt? What happens if Yash gets hurt? Yash was just dealing with an injury all offseason. Brady has to move over there. So they bring Cade Mays back. I don't know, man. I just think that you could have brought somebody else in as a real contingency plan and as a developmental player that is on a very cost-effective deal when you're talking about a 4th, 5th round pick, who also, if he doesn't play much his first 2 years, he's not going to require this huge extension. There was just some foresight, I thought, to drafting a center over and done with. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it, but you look at the graphic here, man, we've lost a lot of really important players, man. So it's a difficult thing to overcome when you get hit with big injuries like this.
Yeah.
Bryson, where are you? Go ahead.
I'm not going to harp too much on the center position. I think it was Ricky kind of put it nicely. I think it was just complete mismanagement, not addressing that position with a person who's coming in, who has never played the position, who's coming off a season-ending injury, to not add something at that position behind him. I know that this injury is completely unrelated to his injury last year, but there are still concerns going into this year, whether that be his lack of experience at that position or, hey, he could get injured from the same injury last year or potentially something else. So I think not drafting someone and then in turn drafting a running back in the second round that hasn't played a down for your team, for a team that needs people that can play, that center that they could have drafted in that position, obviously would be out there at this point moving forward. So that's not great management from the top there. But, you look down this injury report and, it's depressing to look at, obviously, for veteran leaders on this team. Thielen hopefully comes back at some point, but you can even add week 2 in there in the benching of Bryce Young. Week 1 through 5, I really just can't other than losing to the Raiders, couldn't imagine a worse start to the season for this team. It's frustrating. We've harped on a lot of areas where that they are lacking currently, and continuing to lose guys like these. Corbett, who is a vocal leader of this offense, of the offensive line, helps set the tone. Losing him, and Ricky mentioned it creating a lack of depth in other areas. I did feel like Christensen came in and played pretty well at the center position for that game. But then, like Ricky mentioned, what if Yosh suffers a setback on the injury that he's coming off of, and Christian has to slide out there. You got Cade Mays or Andrew Rain playing center now. You're just opening.
We're back to
yourself.
last year.
Yeah,
we're back to last year. Like, seriously,
we really are, and that's not something any of us want. So yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. I don't understand how this happens to us year in and year out, losing key important players every single season. I feel like we are. I know we're not the only team this happens to, but it just feels that way as a Panthers fan. Every year, you can count on losing some of your best players, and for the year, and it's not like they're typically. It's not like they're out 1 to 2 weeks. It's not they're done for the season, and it sucks. It really does.
I just want to. I'm a receipts guy, so we're going to pull this up. This was our mock draft we had in April. We had a bunch of guys with us, JJ, Edgar. There might have been, I know Ricky was with us.
Which, by the way, real quick, since you just brought up JJ, can we just give our condolences to JJ Hardy?
Yes.
I know that he's going through a tough personal time right now, and he's a friend not only to the show, but personally, I think to each one of us. So JJ, if you happen to hear this, if not, man, I'd still want to go ahead and say it, that we're all thinking about you, man, and praying for you and your family, and nothing but the most positive energy in the world sent to you, man.
Yeah, he's a wholesome dude. Love him. Never met him before, but love him like a brother. Really do. Seriously. JJ's a great guy, and condolences to him and his family during this difficult time. But while we're on that, let's talk about this mock draft we did. This was in April. I think it was like a day or two before the draft. And here it is. I know that's probably small for you guys to see. Let me make this full screen for a second here. This is who we took, and look who we took in the 4th round. Tanner Bortolini. So you'd have your guy slid in right here. This would be his moment. This would be the starting moment for him. You'd still have Leggett. I do think. I don't know what Edger and Cooper. I don't know what he's doing in Green Bay, but I know a lot of us were very high on him. And then we would have gotten your guy Ricky Ben Sinnott. So you still would have dressed a running back at with Tennessee. Where did Wright get drafted? Does anyone? I don't know where
Dolphins.
He got drafted.
The Dolphins.
Yeah, he's in the
And
Dolphins. I think he was in the 4th round. So that's the thing too. Sinnott went in the 2nd round, so we wouldn't have been able to get him at that position. But Bortolini, I think Cooper might have been drafted.
You would have got all 3 of those guys.
I think you would have got all 3 of those right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Leggett, Cooper, because Cooper went in the 2nd to Green Bay whenever whatever pick they had. And then Bortolini went, I think, 114 or 117 to the Colts.
Yep.
Or not the Colts. Was he the Colts?
No, he's with the Colts. Yeah, he's with the Colts.
Yeah, okay. So yeah,
they got both of your best friends. They got him and Adonai Mitchell.
We're not going to talk about that. But yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting to take a look at, kind of what we did during the mock draft. But let's take a quick break here. I think this is a good stopping point. We'll be back in about 30 seconds. We appreciate every one of you. I think we almost have 700 people listening right now. So we do appreciate every single one of you guys. I'm going to shamelessly plug right now our YouTube channel, because I know we don't have 700 followers. So if you aren't subscribing, I should say subscribers, if you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, stop what you're doing right now. Go on to YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that bell so you can get notified when we're doing live streams, when new episodes come out. We would greatly appreciate you guys doing that. But we are going to be back after a quick commercial break. We're going to talk, statistically speaking, we'll dive into the Falcons and the Panthers and where they're at numbers wise. We'll do our bets coming up. We got a good parlay this week. Hopefully we can hit on all 3 and win you guys some money. But until then, stay tuned and we'll be back right after this. Exciting news, Panther fans! I'm thrilled to announce our partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join sportsbooks in your area to get the best odds and new user offers. Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/Panthers to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. If you're ready to take sports betting to the next level and show some love to Panthers on Tap, I highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link. All right, so we're going to move on to statistically speaking here. If you guys are joining us for the first time, we literally dive into both offensive and defensive units of both teams, both the Atlanta Falcons that they're playing this weekend, and then obviously the Carolina Panthers, both. And we kind of dive in even a little bit deeper to kind of the key stats on both sides of the ball and kind of give you guys a little bit of perspective on what things you can look forward to in that Sunday matchup. Don't forget, it is a late kickoff. We don't get many in being a Panthers fan. It's a 4:00 kickoff.
Yeah, that's weird, man.
They are wearing the black helmets this week. Finally, it's only when they play Atlanta. I don't understand that at all. But let's get into it. Let's start with the Atlanta Falcons offense.
Bryson, you want to take this first slide, man?
It's all you, brother.
Okay. The Atlanta offense, they have 22.2 points per game. That's good for 17th in the NFL. They get 357.4 yards per game. That's good for 10th in the NFL. I would say that this is by far the most dynamic offense that we've faced so far in this season. I know that the Bengals are a pretty good offensive team, but the Falcons just have I think
We're
that
cooked.
we're
cooked.
No. Hey, don't spoil it, man. We might have some answers here. All right, let's see why we might have some answers. Hold on. 260.6 passing yards per game. That's sixth best in the NFL. That's thanks to Kirk Cousins, but also that number is probably a bit inflated thanks to the 500-plus yard performance on Thursday Night Football. 96.8 rushing yards per game. That's 26th in the league. And that's with Bijan Robinson, the generational running back talent. So I changed up one thing here on these offensive stats. Instead of showing their rushing yards and passing yards per play, I changed it to the EPA for each of them. Because when you look at the advanced analytics, this shows a little bit more of the effectiveness and how much that offense and how much those plays can actually change the skew of the game, right? It actually shows how efficient they are and what they provide. So from an EPA standpoint, they're 0.09 on the positive side. That's tied for 6th per pass play. On the rushing side, they're negative 0.20 on the rushing side. That's 28th in the league. And that's surprising to me, and obviously to the statistics as well here, because when you have Bijan Robinson and you have an efficient passing game, you would expect there to be a really nice rushing attack that can complement that. They've scored 9 offensive touchdowns. That's tied for 22nd. Remember that number. 63.5% passing on their offensive tendencies. That's 5th in the league. So these guys throw the ball around. Now, some of that, maybe because of the game that they've been in, but honestly, that's just kind of their identity. They've got Kirk Cousins. They've got Drake London. Ray McLeod is having this resurgent year. Kyle Pitts is still, well, for the first 4 games, he was Kyle Pitts where he was non-existent. But last week, I thought he had a nice little game. If you're a fantasy owner, you're probably still pissed off about Kyle Pitts because he's been exactly what you didn't want to draft him to be. So yeah,
if you're still drafting Kyle Pitts, you don't know what the hell you're doing.
You got to just stop it, man. Get off of that ride, man. He's only going to hurt you, So yeah, that's the bare bones of this Atlanta Falcons offense.
One guy that I thought had a really impressive week last week for them was Darnell Mooney. He's having another
absolutely.
Well, he's playing with the best quarterback he's played with to this point in his career, and having that kind of season that a lot of fans in Chicago and around the league thought that he could be. And, he is a dynamic wide receiver that made some really good catches last week, and worries me that he's going to be going up against the likes of Mike Jackson and Dane Jackson and, that Troy Hill, wherever they put him. It's worrisome.
Yeah, and you talked about him. I thought Ray McLeod has had a pretty good resurgence for this team. I really do. I feel like every week he's progressed really well. And then another guy who's kind of taken a step back. The reason why I know this is, He's on my fantasy team. He was my first
Ooh.
pick. That's Bijan Robinson. Like, he has taken a step back, but I'm really concerned this week because he's playing a Panthers defense that just cannot stop the run, and he's probably going to have a get back week, and that's usually what happens against Carolina. And he's going to have 100+ yards and dominate, and Tyler Algier is going to have a really good week too. So I'm just I think this is, besides, I would say, the Saints, the most explosive offense they're going to play. And Kirk Cousins has a way with Carolina. He has these last couple. I think his last 3 games he's won against Carolina. I think he's 3-2 against them.
And last year, I think it was because of his ground game that really propelled him. I think he only threw for like right around 200 last year at Bank of America.
And Carolina, for the most part, I mean, they gave up a big touchdown last year to Justin Jefferson, but for the most part, like, they kept him at bay.
They did.
And they had the pick six, Sam Franklin's famous pick six he had last year in
I
Carolina
miss Sam
when they
Franklin
played.
too, man.
Yeah, that's a big one. But yeah, this offensive, the way our defense is depleted, and JC Horn, and then like really no one else at this point. It scares the hell out of me. It really does. I think they're going to struggle. But let's jump into a little bit deeper into this offense for Atlanta.
All right, so the offensive keys, and to Curtis's point about Bijan Robinson, I think that maybe the best defense against Bijan Robinson this week is going to be Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. If he decides that he doesn't want to run Bijan Robinson anymore and wants to let Tyler Algier get the bulk of the carries, that's our best defense against Bijan. You'll see right there, Bijan is the character in that icon photo. 16 rushes of 10+ yards in the league in the season so far. That's tied for 12th most in the league. 17.6% of the time the team run stuffed rate. That's 20th in the league. That's 0 or negative yards on a rushing attempt. 3.12 rushing yards after contact per carry. That's kind of their thing. They're not as much of the before contact. They obviously, that makes a lot of sense too when you look at who their running backs are. Bijan Robinson is a physical specimen. Tyler Algier is a stout guy, but he's very physical. He's got a little bit of speed to him, but nothing that you're going to be worried about for the home run threat there. 8 passing touchdowns already this season. That's tied for 6th in the league. 700 yards after catch. That was, Curtis was just talking about Ray McCloud. Bryson talked about Darnell Mooney. Those are your yard after the catch threats. And also the running backs out of the backfield play a huge part in that as well. When you bring up Ray McCloud, I think of him almost in a way of how the Rams fell in love with a guy like Tutu Atwell, or even, Robinson, the guy that they bring in sometimes. That's kind of like not necessarily their gadget guy, because that's not the right way to describe their role on the team. But that yards after the catch, that speed element to the offense, that is where Ray McCloud can thrive, and that's the same offensive.
Kind of that, I would jump. I don't mean to cut you off.
No.
Kind of that Demarcus Robinson role.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean?
No, exactly. That's exactly what he plays, and it's easy to make that comparison because the scheme Zach Robinson comes from is that Los Angeles scheme with Raheem Morris. Like, that is what they're familiar with, that Sean McVay offensive scheme. So it is really easy to make that comparison. I think it's a good one, Curtis. Let's talk about Zach Robinson's tendencies. 14.4% of the time they run play action. That's 30th in the league, man. To me, that's why it is so disappointing. If I'm a Falcons fan, that's why I'm so disappointed in what they've done on the ground so far, because they've got legitimate running backs. Their offensive line isn't terrific, but it's not the worst in the league, man. Like, they've got a decent offensive line. I would really expect them to run the ball more, and that play action should be a huge piece of a complementary offense. They've given up 10 sacks. That's a tie for the 9th fewest on 64 quarterback pressures. That's tied for the 9th most. See, that's an interesting stat right there, right? 9th fewest sacks, but the 9th most quarterback pressure. So they're allowing it. It's almost like the Ejiro Evero of offensive lines, if you will. Bend but don't break. 33.9% quarterback pressure rate. That's 14th in the league, so right in the middle almost. They've been blitzed on 25.5% of dropbacks. That's important to note, just because you can look at what Evero does. And it also shows how Kirk Cousins reacts to pressure and what he does with it. That's only 24th most in the league. A lot of teams like to sit back and put a little bit of extra defenders out there in coverage so that they can kind of try to make the windows tighter and provide extra looks against Kirk instead of speeding him up, because he is really good at processing and getting the ball to where it's supposed to be in a quick amount of time.
So, Ricky, I'm going to ask you this because I know Bryson and I have chimed in a bit. What is your biggest fear with this Atlanta offense?
Well, so I think it's only really our defense that gives me this reason. So it is their rushing attack, but their rushing attack is not prolific. But what you said about the get right situation, I mean, this is where we saw the Raiders. You look at the Raiders' rushing numbers against us; they were very pedestrian, but they were double what they averaged almost for the season average, right? So if you look at Atlanta and you say they average about 97, 98 yards on the ground, I mean, dude, if they do 150% of that, we're giving up 140 on the ground. That's bad news bears for the Carolina Panthers, because then I do think that opens up that play action. Then I think that Kirk Cousins is a smart enough quarterback and a humble enough quarterback. He doesn't really give a shit about his statistics, man. He's not going to care how he beats us. That dude just wants to be able to walk through the tunnel, point at somebody, and ask them if they like it. He wants to put on the chain. He wants to be Kirk O'Chains. He wants to get the W. He's there for a reason. And they drafted Michael Penix Jr. in the first round. Kirk Cousins is out to prove something, man. He wants that young fella sitting, and he's not that young. He's pretty old, but he wants him sitting for a little bit, man. So the rushing thing is what gives me the most pause because of our defense, but Kirk Cousins is very lethal with the way that he can play. I think Kyle Pitts is actually in line for a nice game in this one. I think if you're asking Trevin Wallace or Claudin Cherlis to take that on, or if you're asking Xavier Woods or Nick Scott, I mean, there's just a lot of things. And maybe we get Jordan Fuller back, man. Jordan hasn't been terrific on the back end of coverages. So I think there's a bevy of things to worry about, bro.
My biggest fear with Kyle Pitts, and we did this when we played them early on when he was a rookie, J.C. Horn better not be on his ass. Because I remember they did that where he literally fouled him the entire game. And there are way too many there's way too many fish in the sea to be going after Kyle Pitts. Like, make him beat you. I'm fine with him beating you. Like, you put pressure on Drake London, Mooney, Ray McLeod, like those guys in the run game. And hopefully we can hold off on Kyle Pitts, because I do not want to see number 8 on him. I don't think he's that great. And I think, he does get a get right game. It is Carolina's defense, but I really hope that we're not seeing literally JC follow him all game, because I know that was their game plan a couple years. I even feel like last year it was JC was on him a ton. But I just want to ask the chat, even if you're on Twitter or YouTube, what is your biggest fear with this Atlanta offense? Kirk Cousins, I feel like, is Carolina's Achilles heel these past couple years when he's played them. But the run game, I would say, is mine. It's Bijan is a special talent. And I still don't think, and me and Ricky have kind of touched on this, I still don't think Atlanta knows how to use this guy. Like, I think he's a very special talent, and they don't deploy him right. I don't get it. I don't know why it's so confusing, and maybe it's like Dave Canales and Chuba Hubbard. He just does not know how to run this guy enough. But it's like, man, he's special. I mean, this guy was starting over Jonathan Brooks, the guy we picked. And he comes from a very talented running back room at Texas. So,
and he's been good. That's the confusing part, right? Is that Bijan has looked dynamic, man. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Bryson?
I think when you're talking about the Carolina Panthers defense, there's not much an opposing offense doesn't scare me with. So, you're talking about a rush defense that hasn't been prolific to this point in the season. Neither were the Bengals, neither were the Raiders, and they were effective versus this defense. Passing wise, Kirk Cousins coming off the 500-yard passing game against a better defense, and he's going to have his way with this defense. There's not anything that doesn't worry me, and I think whatever that Falcons offense wants to do on Sunday, they're going to be able to do it versus this defense.
As I get off mute, let's move to the Panthers now here. Or did I not dive into? We talked about both, right? Offensive side, or did we get out to get into the keys?
About the offense, we only did the offense, I think, so far, right? We haven't even done the defense for the Falcons, if I remember.
Oh man, yeah, you're right. Here we go.
This is what happens when Curtis brings the red wine up to the office for the
hey,
episode.
If I want to, I won't even show up. But the bottle of wine is gone. the whole bottle.
There you go. That a boy. I didn't even see you pour extra glasses either, man. You're a sneaky little wino.
I was doing off camera.
Good for you, man. All right, so look, let's run through this quickly then. Since we've already done the offense and we're on the defense, let's get through the defense and then let's go straight into the defensive keys and then maybe just talk about it after we get through all of them. We've got 23 points per game allowed. That's tied for 20th in the league. 335.8 yards per game allowed. That's 18th in the league. Kind of middling, a little bit lower than average. 187.4 pass yards per game. That's 9th in the league. The 9th fewest pass yards per game allowed. That's AJ Terrell, who actually isn't having his best season so far. I think that he's been a little bit disappointing as far as Falcons fans would probably tell you with his play. But right here, you guys said we're so screwed. We're done in this game. This is what gives me the tiniest glimmer of hope, right? 148.4 rushing yards per game allowed. 29th in the league. So we'll get into also what this defense doesn't do well on the next slide. But there is a recipe here. If for some reason Dave Canales wakes up and feels like cooking on Sunday afternoon, they've got a recipe right here. It's on a little card. It's handwritten from a Nona in Atlanta. It's there. You can do it. 6.6 even passing yards per play. That's tied for 13th in the league. Middling, 4.4 rushing yards per play. That's the interesting part, too, is that they're not awful, like on a per-play basis, but they allow a decent amount of chunk plays. 10 touchdowns allowed on defense. That's tied for 13th, best in the league. 48% of the time opponents are passing. That's the 30th ranked in the league, which means that 52% of the time teams are running the ball. That is a pretty high clip. And that is what gives me the tiniest bit of hope there, is that teams have done it. That's how they've stayed close with it. That's how they've kind of limited the effectiveness of the Falcons offense, which is relatively dynamic. So I think that that's pretty important to note, that that's, a possibility for the Carolina Panthers. It would require some stubbornness from Dave Canales and company, but if they feel like being men of their words on Sunday, I think we could see it. Real quick into the defensive keys. Here's the part I'm talking about. They have 5 sacks on the year. That's the worst in the league. You heard that correctly. Worse than the Carolina Panthers. It is the worst, sole worst. 37 quarterback pressures, tied for the worst. 21.4% quarterback pressure rate, the worst. 0.95 average get off. That's the defensive lineman. That's the pass rush. Getting off the snap and getting after the quarterback, the worst in the league, 32nd. So as awful and atrocious, and it's almost Halloween time, so as scary as this Carolina Panthers pass rush has been for Panthers fans, this is worse for these dirty shitbirds in Atlanta. It is even worse for them. They allow 17 rushes of 10 plus yards. That's tied for 18th. Now they allow 1.72 yards before contact. That's 25th in the league. Where Chuba is ultra dynamic is his refusal to lose yards at the beginning of a rush. I don't want to see Miles Sanders that much because he doesn't believe in the same philosophy. Chuba believes in getting to the line and then doing his thing, which is actually exactly what Canales has said before. That's what they want out of these guys. They blitz on 34.7% of the time. That's 4th most in the league. So we're going to see some pressure, man. 4 rushing touchdowns have been allowed. That's tied for 10th most in the league. And then 10th fewest in the league. And then 6 passing touchdowns tied for 12th. So 10 touchdowns allowed, not that much. They're a relatively stingy team when it comes to allowing teams into the painted area. We'll see how that goes for the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. Any takeaways from these guys?
What annoys me about this is last week we ran through Chicago's numbers and everything pointed to you better pound the rock against Chicago. And then they didn't do it. So I see the sack numbers. It's awesome. And I think Carolina can hold up, fingers crossed, with Christensen at center and Yosh at right tackle. But I still want to see Carolina pound the ball. I mean, 20-plus carries for Chuba, 25 even. Run the damn ball. Keep the Atlanta offense off the field and control the clock. Keep this low-scoring NFC Cell type matchup, and you got a chance in this one. But if they don't do that and they get the game gets away from them, or Canales switches to pass because he's getting nervous, or whatever the case may be, it's going to be a long day at the office, just like last week.
Yeah, and I think I wonder if those numbers, for lack thereof, for those numbers of the sacks and the pressures, is because of the opposing offenses not passing at a high amount of level versus this defense. Ricky mentioned that teams are running at 52% of the time against them. I like we've said before in this episode, this is a get right game for whoever plays the Carolina Panthers. So if this Falcons defensive line wants to improve those numbers, they're facing the team to do it with an offensive line that's banged up and a team coming off a very disappointing loss. So a clear cut, like Curtis mentioned, clear cut game plan. Same thing as last week. Run the ball. Do not get infatuated with these numbers on the defensive line, lack thereof, pressure, and thinking that you're going to light them up passing it. It's a good secondary, two really good safeties, a very good corner, and I think you just got to run the ball. And we'll see if maybe week 6 is when Canales figures that out. And he mentioned in a couple of his pressers that they're looking at their schemes and all kinds of stuff. So are you making adjustments? Are you going to go with the most effective running back in the NFL up to this point in the season? We'll see if he's a man of his word.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about the pass rush, because Bryson, you asked, like, is that a product of how often teams are running the ball, right? That quarterback pressure rate, why that is so significant is because it takes into account how many pressures are getting on dropbacks, not just a total collective number of pressures, right? Because you're exactly right. That's what can inflate the statistics. But that quarterback pressure rate is literally saying per dropback, how often are they getting pressure? And they're bottom of the league in that as well. So that is encouraging, at least for our sake as Panthers fans, that no, it's not just about how much we run it. We actually should have time to operate in the pocket from a passing game standpoint as well.
I'm shocked at that number, to be totally honest with you.
Because they signed Matthew Judon?
Yeah, they got Judon, Grady Jackson.
Grady Jarrett. Grady
Jarrett is the guy who's scared. He always does well against Carolina.
Always. And now he'll be going up against Brady Christensen, potentially, if he's in the middle.
And a guy who had a pretty bad snap. He did have one bad snap in that game. That almost, if it wasn't Andy Dalton throwing that wobbly duck out to the sideline, that was either a touchdown or a safety. I mean, let's be real here. They got very lucky on that play. So, I mean, that's another couple points added to that scoreboard against Chicago. So, I mean, it's not all roses with Brady back there either. And it's going to be tough sledding, guys. I'm not trying to be the pessimistic one, but that's the fucking reality. It really is. I mean, this offense, Atlanta's offense, I believe it's going to wipe them out of the water defensively. It really is. But let's go with Carolina. Let's move forward here. Let's start with Carolina's offense.
I hate that the Falcons found their rhythm against the Buccaneers too last week, right? Like they've got all this confidence coming in, and the Buccaneers defense isn't good. So that's just a recipe for disaster too. Panthers offense, these numbers dropped since last week. Go figure, right? Like that's the really tough part about a team like Carolina, man. We make progress by inching away from those atrocious first 2 weeks, and then we drop that goose egg essentially last week again. And it just ruins all the progress we've made, man. 16.6 points per game. That's 29th in the league. 291.2 yards per game. That's 25th in the league. 180.4 passing yards per game. 26th in the league. 110.8 rushing yards per game is only good for 19th in the league. Maybe if you ran the ball a little bit more, you might see better numbers than that, right? And these numbers, these EPA numbers are really interesting to me too. The rushing one, especially the passing, not so much. I think that's fair. Negative 0.32 EPA on pass plays. That's 28. But the negative 0.06 EPA per rush, that's tied for 19th. You got to take into consideration, and I didn't go into this and provide these numbers. I can later on Twitter or something if people want me to. The difference between Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard in that regard, because they're the only two running backs that are really touching the ball for the Carolina Panthers. Think about the expected points average, right? Like what it adds to an offense per run. Chuba Hubbard is getting positive yardage. He's not losing yardage. His EPA is not going to be negative. It's just not going to be. That shows you how much individually Miles Sanders has dragged down that ground game. And I'm not trying to pile on the dude, man. I look, he's still a Carolina Panther. I want him to play well. But let's be honest about things. But let's be honest about things, man. Like this offense would be much more efficient and much more dynamic if he would even maybe he can keep playing, but if he would just get to the line of scrimmage before he decided to two-step. Like get there, man. Stop losing yardage.
He's got happy feet. That's his problem.
He's got happy feet, man. Call it.
Yeah.
And he does have some wiggle, man. It's not like he's like a stiff upright board. He does have wiggle, but he wants to do it before he has to. And that's a maddening thing for a running back, in my opinion. 9 offensive touchdowns scored. That's tied for 22nd. That's the number I told you to remember. Somehow, in some weird, sick universe, we have scored as many touchdowns as the Atlanta Falcons. It makes no sense because you look at the rest of the offense and it makes zero sense, right? I knew that one was going to get a little bit of a reaction. 60.9% of the time we're throwing the ball. You can say game flow all you want to, dictating. I'm going to tell you right now that number is trash for the Carolina Panthers. We shouldn't be near that figure. I don't give a shit how much we've been down. I don't give a shit how much time was left on the clock. Where we are effective, where we can be a dangerous football team is running the football. Do not throw the ball 61% of the time. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And even when we are down in games, when has it worked to throw the ball to get back in the game this season?
Thank you, bro.
So if it's not going to work, just run the fucking ball. If you're down 30, just run the ball because it's proven to be effective. So passing the ball to attempt to get back into a game, which hasn't worked to this point, why do you keep doing it? Just a thought.
How do you open up the pass with the pass?
Yeah.
Like, does that make sense? Like, how do you open up the pass with the pass? What am I fucking saying? I sound like the Mad Hatter. I sound like I'm about to drink some tea and walk through the twirly whirly woods or whatever the hell that character does. Like, you don't open up the pass with the pass. Run the football, Carolina.
Well, and what irks me too is, Ricky, you posted about this. I posted about this on our account. Is the numbers of Chuba the first 5 weeks, the amount of times Chuba was run in that game, 13 times. People are like, well, they were out of the game. Well, yeah, but if you look at that first half, it's bullshit. They were in that game in the first half, and they decided to go out there and pass when the run was working and pass some more and then run even with Deontay Johnson, which got you like 2 yards every time you did it. So, and I'm going to pull this up because it's pissing me off because people always look at it and they're like, well, they were out of the game at this point. So we had this is the first quarter that we're going to run through this because people piss me off and I'm ready to run through these damn numbers. So we had the first quarter, the first possession, 5-yard run with Chuba, pass for no gain, pass incomplete, punt. Next drive, touchdown, 2-yard run with Deontay Johnson, pass, 4-yard run with Deontay Johnson, 38-yard touchdown, Chuba Hubbard run. Okay. So at that point in the game, we are sitting at 7-0 Carolina. Okay. Then the Bears score. So it's 7-7. Next drive, 8 plays. 5-yard run with Chuba Hubbard. 6-yard run with Chuba Hubbard. Negative 1-yard pass. Negative 5-yard penalty. 3-yard run with Andy Dalton. Sacked Andy Dalton, punt. Okay.
So not a single rush.
Yep. Not a single rush. So then Chicago scores again. So it's 14-7. So Carolina gets ball back. 2-yard pass. 2-yard run with Miles Sanders. 1-yard pass. Punt. 5-yard drive. Chicago gets turnover on downs. Carolina, 5-yard run with Chuba Hubbard. A sack. And he don't pass to Tremble. He fumbles. He's concussed. Chicago takes over. They're still up 14-7. So then Chicago scores. They're up 21-7. Okay. Turnover on downs with Carolina here. 5-yard run with Chuba Hubbard. 8-yard pass. Pass incomplete. 7-yard pass. Pass incomplete. Turnover on downs. They ran once in that drive.
It's crazy.
One time, and we had 5 yards on a damn carry. So you're down 21-7 at that point. And then right before half, Chicago scores a touchdown. You're down 20. I think it was 27-7 at that point. And then Carolina, and we didn't even talk about this tonight. Eddie Pinheiro missing a 45-yarder when he's supposed to be pretty automatic about 45 yards and in, and he misses it. And we go back to that. I know I was an Eddie supporter, but that ain't good enough. I mean, that is just
your support for Eddie was one of the biggest hurdles I had to get over before joining the show. You guys approached me and said, "Hey, you want to join the show?" And I was like, "Only if Curtis just stops with that bullshit, because he's gonna miss some kicks."
Yeah.
But the funny thing about all this, no, seriously, going through those drives, we ran it maybe 6 times, and 5 of those were Chuba Hubbard, probably like 7, 8 times, and 5 of those were Chuba Hubbard, and 3 were Deontay Johnson, Miles Sanders. The fuck are we doing?
And he was cranking out 5 yards, 6 yards a carry with a 38-yard touchdown, and they just refused to keep doing it. I mean, there is no logic, fellas. There is no logic that says that's what you have to do. I'm sorry.
All right, let's go to the keys for the offense here.
All right, let me get my game face back on. Sorry. All right, so I kept all the icons the same because this is really all we have. These are our keys. Big League Chew, 10 rushes or not just Big League Chew, the Carolina Panthers. 10 rushes of 10-plus yards. That's 27th in the league. We were 8 rushes last week. We knew that Chuba had the 38-yard touchdown. That would qualify as one. And then they just stopped running the football. 1.3 yards before contact per attempt. That's 16th in the league. That number would be much higher if Miles Sanders was not involved in that equation as much as he is. I promise you that. Again, I'm not trying to single him out, but that is the truth. And that's evidenced by this bottom number right here, 3.46 yards after contact per attempt. That's 5th best in the league. I mean, why are we not running the football, man? We're middle of the league before contact, which means that our rushing offensive line is doing a great job because Miles Sanders is giving you negative on that. We're probably closer to the top 7 or 8 if you want to look at it from a quantitative standpoint with Chuba Hubbard. And then 5th best after. It's nuts, man. It blows my mind even reading this again. And I researched all this and did this, and it still blows my mind reading it right now. 12 sacks on offense. That's tied for 13th on 54 quarterback pressures. That's a 28.3 quarterback pressure rate. That's 9th best in the NFL. We saw the Falcons are 32nd. They're the bottom of the league on all of those metrics. So I am looking forward to Andy Dalton having some time. I would just like to know who is going to be the beneficiary of that time. 6.6% quarterback sack rate. This is a stat that is a little bit more geared towards the quarterback and his ability to understand when pressure is coming and when to get rid of it. Andy Dalton's done a pretty decent job in that. He dropped a little bit from last week. The Chicago Bears did get a lot of disruption, especially from Javon Dexter, their interior defensive lineman. He caused havoc, and that has to give you a little bit of pause because now we face Grady Jarrett, who is in a similar vein, a very disruptive interior defensive lineman. 23.6% we are running play action concepts. That is 16th in the league. That also dropped from last week. 512 team yak. That's 20th in the league. That's disappointing, but you know what? If it wasn't for Jalen Coker's, about 40 yards yak last week, I think that we would have been under 50 for the entire game. 36.3% of the time opponents are blitzing the Carolina Panthers. That's the 5th highest in the league. We saw how often the Atlanta Falcons blitz. So when you're watching the game on Sunday afternoon, keep an eye out for extra defenders coming. Keep an eye out for exotic defensive looks and for disguised blitzes because they have to manufacture pressure because they cannot create individually. Nobody can hear you, Curtis, not even us.
And I'm sorry. Before we go any further, we're through a whole bottle of wine. Give me a break. We have 920 plus people listening right now. We appreciate every single one of you. It's almost 11 o'clock at night on the Eastern time. And even if just half of you, go hit the subscribe button on YouTube. We almost double our subscribers right now. So please stop what you're doing right now. Go hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We would greatly appreciate. If you don't got an account, create one quick. It takes 2 seconds. Hit the subscribe button. We really would love for you guys to do that. Hit the bell as well. It'll notify you when we're doing live episodes, when we have new episodes coming out. So we would appreciate it. I'm going to shamelessly plug right now, UNRL. I finally got this from Bryson. They sent us these jackets. They're incredible. I mean, we got the sweatshirts last year. We got the jackets this year. It's like a track jacket. If you guys
Yeah.
can't see this, it says Panthers. I think it says, I don't know if it says Panthers on the back or
It says
Carolina.
Carolina Panthers on the back.
Carolina.
Yeah.
It's very lightweight, but honestly, I've been sweating my ass off in this room wearing it. And then even it's got like the old like starter jacket, like kangaroo pouch type thing. If you guys can see this, and inside, Bryson was telling me about this when he came over last week. They got like facts about the Panthers inside this pocket. I don't know if you guys get one of these, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so damn cool.
I wore mine today to pick my kid up from school and had like 3 different people say something about it. Seriously, just walking at an elementary school to pick my kid up. They were like, "Hey, that's a nice jacket." And then a dad stopped me. He goes, "Hey, is that new track jacket for the Panthers?" I was like, "You bet your ass, dude. Carolina Panthers. Panthers on tap. Watch the show tonight."
Amen. I love that. You're always marketing, but it says keep pounding in it. So it's got keep pounding in there. It tells you when they were established. They're part of the NFC South. It tells you how many conference championships they have, division championships. They obviously don't have a Super Bowl. That better fucking change within the next couple decades. It might be a while. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, seriously, they're coming out with another thing. I don't know if you saw that, Ricky, as I try to zip this back up. But yeah, they have something dropping in a couple of weeks. Another, I think it's something in the color of black for Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's the same thing as this, but again, everything they make is great. The sweatshirt last year material was it's different. It's different than any other sweatshirt you've owned. I'm not saying that because we got one. It is. And this is just so lightweight. And I would definitely be wearing this at games. I think it's going to be great, especially in the rain.
It is like the most comfortable thing. And I'll break some news here and share a secret with everybody. I'm a large individual. So a lightweight jacket is really comfortable for me. I don't want something super duper heavy and restricting. And that jacket right there, man. I mean, I swear to you, I almost feel like I'm like a Rocky Balboa, like running up the steps, like at a championship, like, training jacket. Like I just feel like an incredible human being when I'm wearing that thing. On the note about subscribing to the YouTube channel, hey, look, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you catch me out in Charlotte, you might even catch me and Bryson out in Charlotte together, going to a game or something, maybe over at a neighborhood pub. Catch us out there. Show us that you're subscribed to come and have a shot or a beer with us, man, on your boy. Come out, do the right thing, man. Subscribe to it. Catch all of these shows live. The Panthers on Tap crew has done 150 episodes. I've been here for, about 4 or 5 as a member, but I've done some guest spots too. So I like to think that I had some fun with your previous 143 or whatever it might have been. But look, subscribe to the show, man. We do this because we enjoy talking football. We like talking about the Carolina Panthers, and we'll continue to do it as long as people want us to do it. Show us the appreciation, and we'll keep going, man.
Let's dive into the defense here, and then we got our bets coming up, so stay tuned for that. But here it is on the defense, Ricky or Bryson, if one of you guys want to take this away.
Yeah, I'll do it, Ricky.
I love
to
it.
save you a little bit. 33 points per game. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the worst in the NFL. Who's surprised with this defense and what we've seen so far? 371.2 yards per game, 28th. Hey, it's not the worst. It's damn near bottom of the league, but it's not the worst. 226.6 passing yards per game, 22nd. That's a little higher than I would have expected it, but in turn, we're giving up 144.6 rushing yards per game, which is 27th in the league. 7.6 passing yards per play, 31st. So when teams are passing it, they're going for a decent amount of yards. 4.3 rushing yards per play, 11th in the league. Wow. Okay. 20 touchdowns allowed. That's 32nd. This defense, man, I've said it 100 times. Whatever you want, you can have versus this defense. Specifically talking about touchdowns. And teams are passing at 47.3% of the time against us is 31st in the league. Curtis, you there?
All right, how we doing?
We are ready to move on.
Ready to go to the next slide? All right, let's do
Yes,
it.
sir. Yes,
Defensive
sir.
keys. Bryson, you want to do this? You want me to go for it?
I'll let you handle this one, buddy.
Gotcha. Defensively, the Carolina Panthers have gotten 6 sacks this season. That's one more than the Atlanta Falcons. That's tied for 29th in the league. At least it's not 32nd. 48 quarterback pressures. That's tied for 26th. At a 29.8 quarterback pressure rate, which is 23rd. So there is really a lot of that comes from that Las Vegas Raiders game as well. If you kind of put things into perspective, these other games we have not gotten there. 3.7% team sack rate. And then you go to 3.5 yards average target separation for opposing pass catchers. That's tied for 12th. We've allowed 11 passing touchdowns. That's tied for the most in the entire league. And when you talk about this secondary and you talk about J.C. Horn, you talk about Evro's specialty, that's disappointing, man. And a lot of people hung their hats last year on the ability of this defense from the secondary, right? And they'll look at the passing yardage per game and they'll say, oh, we only allowed this, we only did this. And people will still try to do it right now, even though that's also gotten noticeably worse. This team is allowing everything right now. It is not one-dimensional. It's not just that we're getting run over. We are allowing chunk yardage gains. We're allowing routine gains, and we're also not holding up in the red zone. That's a problem, and it's something that I think that the Atlanta Falcons are aware of, and I anticipate them taking advantage even of our passing game, because when you look at Drake London and Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod and Kyle Pitts, that's 4 legitimate receivers. Do we have 4 legitimate defensive backs to be out there? 28.6% of the time we're blitzing. That's 13th in the league. That's also gone down. We were blitzing at a heavier clip. Evero has almost even left more to the conservative side of his defensive scheme, where he is really staying and allowing more guys to be back in coverage. He's going to have to generate pressure. He's going to have to. 1.61 yards before contact per attempt in the rushing side. That's 22nd in the league. That's not surprising. Honestly, the most surprising thing about that is that it's 22nd instead of 29th or 30th or 31st. 9 rushing touchdowns allowed is the most. So when Bryson and Curtis and myself spoke earlier about what are we most worried about with this Atlanta offense, that's part of the reason. We're allowing the most rushing touchdowns, and they have, regardless of what their coach might think of Bijan Robinson, what I think of him and what he's shown throughout his career so far in the NFL is that he's a very dynamic running back and a guy with the ball in his hands that you have to account for. Man, I hope he doesn't find the painted grass, turf, whatever you want to call it, often in Carolina, but I could see him maybe having that breakout week that a lot of fantasy owners are hoping for.
All right, so let's talk here. I guess we'll go to our bets for this week. Then we'll get into the prediction for this game. And so we did a parlay last week. I think we were 2 out of the 3. Hopefully we hit all 3 this week.
My bad, guys.
But here,
I'm bad luck, man. Leggett got injured, and he left me stranded.
But there's Bryson, a strategy to that then, right? With Bryson, lean into that right here, Bryson. Talk to us.
Yeah, so we'll start with mine. So, I've been wrong every single week. I have not picked a winning bet. Embarrassing to admit, but it has happened. So I figured, why not go with the Atlanta Falcons in the point spread this week and 6.5, taking them points away from them and giving them to the Panthers. But maybe if my streak continues, then we have a close game or the Panthers win. And if I break my streak, then I break my streak. So I think it's a win-win for me this week.
Yeah, I'll go next before Ricky jumps in here. I just want to get the right. I know FanDuel is doing a deal right now. I think it's if you bet $5. Yeah, if you bet $5, you get $300 in bonus bets if you win your bet. So a pretty big. You can cash in on this, and again, use our landing page. It has all the sports books available in your area, and it's signupexpert.com/Panthers. So take advantage of that. You guys can sign up directly through that link to any sports book that's available. and it puts them all in one area. This week, I went with Deebo Samuel through FanDuel. We're trying to set up a parlay for y'all. Over 55.5 receiving yards. Just looking at his stats against Seattle since he's been in this league, he has been over 55 yards in 5 out of the 6 games he's played against Seattle. So a pretty good clip, and I don't think that's going to change this week, and I think you're going to see him pretty easily eclipse that. So that's the bet I was pretty comfortable in choosing. And I'm hitting that every day of the week with Deebo over 55.5 against Seattle. Ricky, why'd you choose Kittle 5+ receptions?
Well, partially what you're talking about here, right? The Seattle Seahawks have Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon as their cornerbacks, and they have Mike McDonald, who's an absolute maniac as a head coach and a terrific defensive coach. I think that what you're going to see is you might see a good deal of the man coverage between Deebo, and I would guess that Brandon Ayuk is going to get the Devin Witherspoon treatment. I think that they match up better from a physical standpoint. Tariq is a bigger guy. He might have some trouble with Deebo in the yard after catch department, so I like that bet. But for George Kittle, you look at his games, dude, the lowest reception total he's had is 4 in any game. Brandon Ayuk is coming off of a game where he just had something, like 160 receiving yards or something like that on a ton of targets. And then you've got Deebo Samuel to worry about. We know that Christian McCaffrey is out of the lineup right now. So Deebo and Brandon Ayuk are by far the most dangerous dynamic players on that offense. So how do you do that if their cornerbacks shut down the wide receivers? And I mean shut down to a relative extent. How do you attack that? Well, you do it by going through the middle of the field, by having check downs and dump offs, and getting your guy easy catches. That's George Kittle. I think that he has turned into one of Brock Purdy's favorite targets. I think that he relies on him. He trusts him, especially in the red zone. 5+ receptions for a plus money odds. I like that. You're asking him to do what he has done even on a lower level than what he is averaging right now. He's averaging I think 6.1 catches a game or something like that. Give me him with 5 on a Thursday night against a division rival. I think this game screams physicality. I think that George Kittle finds himself on the field very often. He has no designation coming in. He had been dealing with some ribs. He put up, I think, 7 receptions on 8 targets last week. Yeah, give me 5 receptions, man, for a plus money. And I'd be curious. We didn't do this, and I probably should have. Maybe, Curtis, if you're on FanDuel right now, maybe you could even look at it. I don't know what the odds are if you hit all 3 of these on this parlay. I don't know how much of a benefit that is. But even if you bet these individually, man, these are great odds for individual bets too, if you want to.
Yeah, I'm on here right now. So they get in this game. The game me and Ricky put some picks on is obviously this Thursday night game tomorrow night. So we're gonna put this out on our Twitter account probably tomorrow morning, so you guys can take advantage of this. But it says no sweat. They have a no sweat token actually for this. If you use a 3-leg same game parlay for this game, so obviously the one Bryson has wouldn't work. But if you use a 3-leg same game parlay with the 49ers Seahawks this week, it's no sweat. But yeah, I mean, take advantage of this. I know last week we put it out there. If you guys tail with us and jump on this parlay that we got going on right here, take a screenshot of it. We'll try to do something special next week. No one dabbled with us last week. We did only hit 2 out of 3, but hopefully this week we do 3 for 3 here. And you guys can kind of take advantage of some of this. So again, it's signupexpert.com/Panthers. It's our landing page. It'll show you all the sports books in your area that are available. You click on the link that'll take you to the sign up. You sign up, place a bet, and there you go. You're good to go. So take advantage. Again, I think FanDuel's doing right now, it's $5. If you bet $5 and you win your bet, you get $300 in bonus bets. So pretty good deal they're running right now. So take advantage. And there's a lot of deals. I know Bet365 is doing one. I think BetMGM. Most of them do deals pretty often. So take advantage of it.
That's what's so awesome about that landing page too, man, is it puts all of those books all in one place, because I'm 37 years old. I struggle to find all of these things, man. Like, honestly, I want to go to one place and bet my money. Go to that landing page, signupexpert.com/Panthers, and it shows you everything available. And you can click on that, and the first screen that'll come up, man, is going to show you what specials they're running. But before we move on, I just want to say Bryson is going to be the MVP here one way or another. Either he's getting off that snide this week, and he's going to get himself his first W, or the Carolina Panthers are going to be within a touchdown on Sunday at the final score, which we all are winners at that point because we get a competitive football game, not just a competitive football game, but a competitive afternoon football game for the Carolina Panthers. You get to do your pregame for 8 hours instead of just the regular 3 drinking in the morning, which we all like that. It's fun. There's another London game or a Europe game. So start drinking at 9 o'clock in the morning. Try to maintain your best until that 4:25 kickoff. But man, this could be a great situation that Bryson puts us in right here. We're either going to hit this parlay because of this, or we're going to be in a competitive football game. So Bryson, I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, dude. We'll see how strong this curse is. I mean, if this happens and I go 0 for 5 or 6, then I'm just gonna bet the spread of the opposing Panthers
every game.
Every game, man. Well, we'll see if that's the case.
Hell yeah.
All right, let's talk about the game this weekend. What do you guys got for a prediction? Ricky, we'll start with you.
Oh man, I hate that you're starting with me. So last week, now Curtis, you flubbed up earlier in the episode. You said that we all took the Bears to be the winner. I did not. I was the only idiot that took the Carolina Panthers to win that game, 27-17.
No, I took the Panthers.
Oh, did you? I thought you took the Bears.
I think we all took the Panthers.
Wait, we all took the Panthers?
Yeah, we did. That's what I was saying. We all took the Panthers.
Hey, don't listen to me. Curtis has drank a bottle of wine, but don't listen to me, right? Okay, so if I have to give my prediction, which I even hate doing now because I feel like I'm cursing them too in a way, I'm going to say 33-20 Atlanta Falcons.
Bryson, what do you got?
Yeah, similar to Ricky. I got the Falcons winning, and I have them scoring over 31 points, and the Panthers scoring 17. And my bet is unfortunately going to hit, I believe.
Yeah, I think we're all in the 30s on this one. It could be more. I was going to go 42, and I'm like, maybe I'm being too harsh, but maybe that's reality. I'll go 35-17. Atlanta wipes Carolina clean, and it's just we're headed down a really bad path at this point in the season, and I'd hope to see improvement, and I hope the offense can bounce back this week and we get the run game going. I just think Bijan Robinson, he's going to have a get-right game. Atlanta's going to be, rolling on all cylinders, kind of like Caleb Williams was last week. And everyone's like, oh, Caleb Williams was the best number 1 pick, and he's the next greatest thing. And, that's what happens when you play Carolina, and that's what my fear is. And Atlanta looked really good last week. I thought they had a really good game and that comeback win on Monday Night Football. And their offense, I think, is going to be way too much for this team defensively. Carolina just has no chance in this one. I don't see this one being close whatsoever. And hopefully we're all wrong. Hopefully we are all wrong.
You see Carter's comment here. He says, I hate the fucking get right phrase. Carter, I think the reason that you dislike it, I think the reason you dislike it is because we are the get right team. I think that it wouldn't hurt nearly as much and it wouldn't bother you nearly as much because it holds weight against your team. When you are the doormat, when everyone is cleaning their feet before they walk into the house on your face, that sucks. That hurts, right?
The truth hurts.
Yeah, the truth hurts, man. But what we hope for is to turn into the surprise team, the team that catches you off guard, right? I'm not going to sell that dream right now because I don't believe in it. And I'm not a janky used car salesman. I am just an idiot who likes to drink and talk football with his friends. So if you're looking for someone to sell you a dream, head on down to East Independence Boulevard. Lots of used auto dealerships down that way. And other dreams on Independence as well, if you know Charlotte. But that's a different conversation.
704 says this, and it's an interesting point. Carolina has played Atlanta twice in black helmets and has not lost. Both of them were at home. We all know last year, Desmond Ridder, the picked Xavier Woods in that sloppy 200 fan game at Bank of America Stadium. I was one of them.
Desmond Ridder.
I was one of them in that stands. Carolina gets the win on an Eddie Pinheiro chip shot field goal. Then the year before, Bryson and I were there. It was wet again. I think it was a Thursday night game. Carolina black helmets. We were talking to Scott Fitter, Dan Morgan. We took pictures with both of them. We got a little scoop on some of I think it was the draft that week. I don't even remember I think that was maybe the week I asked Scott Fitter about who they were looking at QB. So he tipped his hand a little bit. He talked about Bryce Young in that conversation. But yeah, Carolina
should have known right there when you got the general manager just loose lip talking about it in front of fans, man. God damn it.
Hey man, I was all for it. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome for you guys. I love that y'all had that opportunity. I just hate that it came at that kind of way.
But yeah, Carolina's, I mean, they're 2-0 with these black helmets, so maybe they keep it rolling, but yeah, it's highly unlikely. I hate to shatter everyone's dreams. It's going to be tough. Excuse me. Tough sledding on Sunday. I'm not going to the game. I ended up selling the tickets with my last week on paternity leave. So if who was ever going to the game, I hope you guys have fun. Root your asses off, make that stadium loud, and hopefully Atlanta doesn't take it over. But I think we're going to leave it there. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Hopefully we got some good things to talk about. We sound like a broken record at this point, and it's frustrating as hell. Hopefully we hit on those bets. Again, I'll put that bet out on Twitter, and if you guys are interested, screenshot if you do place a bet with that parlay that we just put out. I'll put it up here one more time if I can. There we go. So if you guys are interested, please take advantage of that. I'm a man of my word, so I'm going to go back here, and we're going to put up this as well to help the folks out that have been hit hard by Hurricane Helene. These are some of the groups you guys can help them out and donate to. Obviously, the American Red Cross of North Carolina, Samaritan's Purse, Hearts with Hands, Manna Food Bank in Asheville, Beloved Asheville. They're obviously there's going to be a long road to recovery for a lot of those folks out there out west in North Carolina. I know Luke Combs is doing a benefit concert at Bank of America Stadium with Eric Church. There's a couple other artists.
James Taylor.
James
Carolina
Taylor.
legend.
Yes, Cheryl Crow signed up today. That's probably one of the better concerts that any Panthers fan wouldn't oppose that David Tepper is bringing here to Bank of America. So kudos for that entire thing. Mm-hmm. And Curtis, I wasn't trying to cut you off here, but I wanted to bring attention to one other fund that you can donate to on my Twitter page, and I'll retweet it tonight after the show. There is a GoFundMe that is going around for Yancey and Madison County specifically, which are on the outskirts in Western North Carolina. And they're having a really hard time between the coordination, the access, and just kind of being a little bit lower on the pecking order, if you will. This effort is being headed by a person that I went to school with, her brother, and they are in conjunction with the local fire department and FEMA and the federal government as well. But they're counting on these locals to help navigate and maneuver through all this stuff. And the stories that have come from this effort, man, are heartbreaking and just devastating when you hear some of these things. But it's also incredibly inspiring to know that we have North Carolina locals, man, that are taking their time and their effort, and they're doing all of this on their own time and going through all of this. So if you want to, and you want to donate to something like that, as opposed to Asheville, everybody still needs stuff. But if you want to do something more direct to the smaller places, I will post that link as well.
Yeah, and I do want to give credit where credit's due as well. I know we mentioned, Panthers obviously hosting that benefit concert, but the Teppers committing $3 million to help those folks will go a long way for everyone too as well. So we do appreciate that. Again, these are the
putting
links.
A shirt out tomorrow too, right? Don't they have
Is
a
that
keep
right?
pounding for Carolina shirt tomorrow?
Yep.
Which is
$35, I believe, on the team site. Really cool graphic too, the mountains, and it says "Keep Pounding for Carolina." really good shirt. I will absolutely be buying one. I'll be buying one for my entire family. If that's something that you're interested in, by all means, look at that too.
So we're going to leave it there. We do appreciate everyone for tuning in. 1,000 plus at 11:20. Again, subscribe.
Appreciate y'all.
Follow us on Twitter as well. And until next time, keep pounding, and we'll see you guys all next week.